Survival Ascended is Ark reimagined in Unreal Engine 5, adding better graphics, more in-game content, and babies, which is cool because I like killing babies. In Ark, of course. I'm going to be giving myself 100 days to beat all 3 of the island's guardian bosses on Alpha and then defeat the Alpha Overseer solo. Day 1, I spawned in on a random beach in the southwestern part of the island. With Ark Survival Ascended being new and improved, my character got up with a getting to my feet animation. But anyways, I gathered my bearings after having my eardrums blown out by quite possibly the loudest intro to a game of all time.
Oh my god, it's very loud. It's getting louder.
So after adjusting a few of my settings and trying to pull myself back together, it was all thrown out the window because an Ichthyornis immediately started to attack me. Don't worry, even though Ark Survival Ascended looks like a completely different game, it's still Ark under all that makeup because there is no mercy for the weak here. Okay, after getting away from that Ichthy and turning off motion blur because you're a demon if you play with that, I began to admire how beautiful this island now was. But after fixing my mouth from how jaw-dropping the landscape was, I remembered I need to get to work or I'm gonna get eaten out here. So I began picking some resources from nearby bushes and I got my first level up. And that of course stopped me dead in my tracks because I had to admire this new user interface. Anyway, I unlocked some necessary tool engrams like a stone hatchet and spear before picking more resources from bushes, picking up some rocks, and punting my first trees to craft my first stone pickaxe. And I then proceeded to bring out my inner Steve and do some mining for flint. But I noticed that rock sound effects kind of sounded different.
Not gonna lie, I know I'll get used to the sounds, but they sound a little weird like right now. They sound like delayed almost.
Anyway, screw those rocks, I began hitting a tree with my pickaxe, which is wrong in so many universes, but it allowed me to get a thatch I needed to craft a stone hatchet. And after crafting my hatchet, I used it to farm some more wood and craft my first spear. I need to kill something to get hide so I can keep moving forward because you need hide for basically any weapon or armor. So after getting distracted by this floor turtle,
Dude, the old glitches still came.
I took my first life on this new island by killing a dodo with a spear to the back of the head. He was the first, but he certainly won't be the last. So after harvesting that dodo with my hatchet to get a whopping 6 hide, I moved about 5 feet down the beach and killed another dodo first try with my spear. First try.
You didn't see that.
I killed the dodo and got the hide, that's all you need to know. I then crossed the river and killed a few more dodos for another sad amount of hide, before unlocking some more essential engrams and traveling down the beach to discover my first naturally spawning babies in vanilla Ark. You can actually claim these babies that you find in the wild if you kill their parents and make it a forced adoption, but I didn't feel like raising baby dodos was worth my time right now, so I kept moving. I was heading towards the red obelisk because I have to see it for myself in that lumen, making the surrounding area look amazing. And I also crafted myself some cloth armor and made my way through some bodies of water that looked amazing and luckily didn't have any piranhas that could get me. But finally, after some time, I made it just below the red obelisk and took one last minute to admire on how good this new Ark looks before getting my head down to grind. So after leaving the obelisk, I farmed myself up a campfire to keep me fed as food was starting to become an issue from all that walking. I wanted to find a place to set up a little base of operations, but I didn't know where yet. The island was so similar yet so different, so I didn't know where was safe and where wasn't. But I eventually made my way up to the small pond with a waterfall feeding into it, and I found myself an explorer note.
Shut up. I don't want it to read it to me.
But besides the great experience it gave me, there was also some giant bees that came out of the floor with it, and they weren't too happy with my presence. And for some reason, the explorer note also reads itself to you. And it took me like 2 solid minutes to figure out how to turn the voice off because I'm not here to get the full Ark lore, I'm here to beat the map and teabag over the Overseer's dead body. So anyways, I found this little island where I felt safe to stay for a little bit. So I did some quick farming and crafted myself a thatch foundation, which looks more like a thatch block, but it works. And I also placed my campfire down to get some food cooking. And another feature I noticed that was added being the amount of time it'll run before it needs to be refueled. Finally, I decided to tame a parasaur by the end of the day, and there was a level 44 walking around nearby like a teacher walking around the class when you're taking a test. Anyway, I crafted up a bola and a club and proceeded to violate the poor dude until she was catching Z's in the dirt. She didn't take too long to tame, and I named her Perry when she woke up because you just got it. It's your first parasaur. But now it's time for me to craft Perry a saddle, and that's going to be difficult as I need hide, and with low harvest rates, it's not going to be that easy with primitive tools. But I decided crafting a bow and some arrows would be the best route, so that's what I did. And I then proceeded to take the lives of 2 parasaurs for a saddle for my own. It was a small price to pay in the name of progress. But now that I have this saddle, I'm ready to take over the Ark, or just get another explorer note and leave to find a better place to build as there isn't a drop of metal around me. Metal will be the root of everything in the mid to late game, so finding it as soon as I can is very vital. But traversing this island with these dense forests and the bigger amounts of foliage will prove very difficult. But this is the last time I'll say this though. Seriously, this game looks amazing, especially especially at night with the red light coming from the obelisk bouncing off the clouds and the water. Wild card, I have to give it to you, you did good here. Before we move on real quick, I just want to say that I just launched my YouTube members. I don't have a sponsor for this video, so it'd mean a lot if you guys check them out and support me financially to help me keep making these videos. You'll get a few cool things like emojis, behind the scenes content, and a ton of other stuff, so check it out for me, and I'm gonna quit yapping now. Finally, day 2. I survived all of day 1 without dying in my most vulnerable state, so let's try and keep it that way. I was still wandering eastwards in search of a big metal deposit or a decently nice place to live at that, and I was also crafting bolas all the way to protect myself from raptors, which are my primary threat right now. And luckily it did, because not even 5 minutes later I encountered my first raptor, and I managed to bola it, but I was about to run away when I decided,
you know what? I can kill it. Screw it. We're growing balls. We're growing balls.
it died in literally 2 arrows, so I don't know what I was that afraid of. But anyways, after harvesting its hide, I jumped back on my parasaur and began moving eastward, once again exploring a spot that used to be flat and barren.
I swear this all used to be open land. Did they just add trees up here?
And I was also using the new map to keep me on track. It has been completely reworked from Ark Survival Evolved. It's now a pop-up that fills the center of your screen, showing where you are in a detailed image of your surroundings. Another good change, I would say. But later on, I was attacked by a combination of raptors, troodons, and titan soldier bugs. Basically, I was attacked by the spawn of Satan himself. But I managed to get away pretty much unscathed, but that didn't stop me from freaking out while I was actually under attack.
No!
But to my surprise, when I made it to the top of the hill I was attacked on, there were a bunch of metal nodes and even some crystal nodes. So I decided to set up a little base of operations for a while to get myself on my feet and to keep me on them. I farmed up 4 of the new thatch foundations and placed them down before trying to figure out how the thatch wall and door frame would work. You see, these 2 structures used to be separate, but they stuck them together, and hitting R on the keyboard makes you toggle to them to which structure you actually want. It took me a while to figure out, but once I finally did, I crashed. Yeah, that was a real slap in the face.
I think it just crashed my game. I think pressing R just crashed my game.
So this isn't that ideal, but I'll just log back in, and nope. When I logged back in, I was back on the other side of the island. You see, in single player now, there is a save game button that you have to hit to save your progress every once in a while. I'm not sure if there is an autosave feature, but if there is one, it obviously wasn't in effect between now and then. Anyway, I decided I wasn't going to go through all that pain again, so I decided to craft a raft and sail halfway around the map up northeast and eventually make my way to the hidden lake to build my base. And I had pretty much all that I needed to craft a raft, so I just hit a few trees and set sail to my new home. Hopefully traveling like this will be a lot more peaceful. And I also had a campfire cooking me some food on the raft at the same time, so I was killing 2 ichthyes with 1 slingshot. Sunrise was finally upon me as I was peacefully sailing, and I was also watching the map get filled out as I went.
Oh! Perry! Alright, let's just get close to shore. We're fine, we're not panicking. We're panicking. It just killed my raft.
I managed to survive the ordeal, and so did Perry, and we swam to shore, but it was still a traumatic experience. And of course, it started raining, but I couldn't even be mad because of how good the weather looked. But after that, I made my way up on a cliff, and there was actually a blue drop waiting for me. So yeah, on top of drops getting a new design, it looks like the loot tables were also buffed, because that was red drop loot quality right there on back on Ark Survival Evolved, and I'm all for it here.
That's the coolest thing ever.
Anyway, I continued down the beach, checking out different landscapes as I went, and eventually I got scammed by a blue drop that I had to kill a ton of piranhas for. But that was all pushed aside when I found a literal unicorn.
There's literally a unicorn right here. There is one of these on the map.
So obviously I had to tame it, as the unicorn is very rare. I did have to use mayho berries, but it was only level 5, so it wasn't too bad. But anyways, after I finally tamed the unicorn, I farmed up another raft by killing diamonds for a hide, killing bushes and trees for their resources. But I was now on the east coast of the island, so I only had to sail a little bit farther and I would be at the hidden lake. And it was all going splendidly until I passed the swamp.
What are... Oh my god. Pass. No! I gotta push it off, baby. Oh, come on, man. I'm saving sprinkles. Maybe I'm not saving sprinkles. No! Oh, I'm dead. No!
Yeah, I lost everything. I mean, I could get my stuff back, which is what I was trying to do, but it still sucks. So after dying a few more times, I actually did manage to make it back and snag my loot and hop on my raft before the Sarko was able to get to me. And I was now headed to the northeastern part of the map with no tames and basically no gear. Welcome to Ark. Anyways, I finally made landfall a few minutes later towards the end of the day, and I immediately killed some of the local dodos to establish my dominance and for their hide. And I then crafted myself a sleeping bag, a campfire to keep me warm, and a mortar and pestle to craft some narcotics for future taming. clean. And I spent the rest of the night hunkered down on the raft trying to stay warm and watching the aurora borealis overhead in the night sky. I crafted a few more trank arrows in the morning of day 3 just in case I run into anything I want to tame. And after that I turned around and there was a level 20 parasaur straight chilling there like 10 feet away from me. Now if you remember from like 30 seconds ago, my parasaur got eaten. So I quickly knocked out and tamed this one. Even though it's horrible, it's still way better than having no parasaur. And after killing a few more local weaklings, I had its saddle. It's like Perry was never gone in the first place. Except I named this parasaur Jerry because it would be weird if I made another one Perry? I don't know what I'm saying. Anyways, I then quickly farmed some more narco berries with Jerry to make even more narcotics, and I then farmed some arrows and bolas to get ready for the great expedition to the hidden lake. I mean, I only had to run through like 30 seconds worth of jungle, but I wanted to be prepared for anything in there. So after a little motivation from my stream chat and a prayer to the Ark gods, I made the journey to the hidden lake.
Alright, here's the path, Alright, is this it? We've made it. Oh my god, guys, look at this.
But even with how pretty it was, it still wasn't safe from the wildlife, as some raptors were running rampant. I tried to bola them to put them down, but I'm actually horrible with Ebola, and this happened instead.
I just bowled my own parasaur.
But eventually, I made it up on a little cliff where I thought it was near impossible for stupid dinos to get me, but I would learn differently later. So anyway, I began settling in and making some foundations to start building my base, and that is until a level 30 raptor ran up to me. Instead of killing it, I decided to bola it and knock it out and tame it. It wasn't very strong, but it was fast, and that could be useful if I need to get away from anything. And later on, I was down by the lake looting a blue drop and harvesting a dead raptor until I heard quite possibly the scariest sound a beach bog like myself can hear.
What? I just heard an owl.
That, my friends, was an Allosaurus roar. But I didn't see any allos, so I went back up to the cliff where I thought I was safe and got back to work. But later on, when I was back down by the lake again, checking out a yellow drop I couldn't open because I wasn't high enough level, I spotted them. There were 2 allos massacring literally everything in their path. So I ran back up to the cliff I was based on, whistled followed on my raptor, and booked it out of the southern entrance to the hidden lake.
You're joking. Stop following me. No.
So it turns out there was a third allo wandering around the cliffs of the hidden lake, and it literally jumped on me through a tree to get to me. It managed to kill Jerry, but I somehow managed to pull a fast one on it and get back to my raptor, whistle follow on it, and then run into the jungle to hide. I found this little crevice where I decided to leave my raptor while I try and farm enough hide to craft a saddle so I could leave and find a safer place to be for a while. Little did I know this is gonna be one of the biggest mistakes of my life. But anyways, I started making my rounds of the nearby area, killing what dinos I could on foot with a bola and some arrows, until I decided to try and knock out 2 raptors with the last 2 bolas I had. But turns out there were 3 raptors and I only had 2 bolas. But somehow I managed to avoid the raptors' attacks, and I put over 10 trank arrows into it before I knocked it unconscious, and then I died to the other 2 raptors. So basically it was a mission failed successfully. But for the next 20 minutes it was just me getting arked. So I'll keep it short. I spent like 10 minutes trying to get back to my gear and tame the raptor, but I died multiple times until one time I finally succeeded. And I then left my newly tamed raptor inside the entrance to the hidden lake to keep it safe while I farmed the 9 more hide I needed to make its saddle. But as I was about to start harvesting the parasaur I killed to do so, the allos from earlier inside the lake managed to pathfind around the cliff edge, up the ramp, into exactly where I was and kill me before I got the hide. Yeah, so I think this is a good time to mention. Ark Survival Ascended also introduced better dino pathfinding AI, so they aren't nearly as stupid as they once were. So no more getting a dino that you want to tame stuck on rocks instead of making a trap, because it's gonna find its way to you if it's the last thing that stupidly smart dino AI will do. But anyways, after dying to the allos, I died once again using myself as bait to get them away from my body, and I then grabbed my items using the map to guide me exactly to where I died. I then made my way back to the raptor to the entrance of the hidden lake, and there was a level 20 pteranodon waiting for me, and of course I killed it, and it gave me just enough hide to craft my saddle and get out of there. And at this point my original raptor was dead because a carno found it, but I decided to go set up a base on the very edge of the map on a cliff where I only have to defend one side. I made sure the area was safe, and I began setting up some thatch foundations, a mortar and stone pestle, a campfire, and a storage box. I wanted to put all my non-essential gear in the box while I go on a metal run and hold as much metal as I can on the raptor. But I first decided to farm some rocks to get small amounts of metal to make a forge, then a smithy, and then a metal pickaxe to maximize the amount of metal I can actually farm. So I got to it. I did the typical farming, killing, more farming, and baby claiming. Yep, you heard it right. That trike I just killed was the parent to this little baby, and I claimed it. And of course, I named it Baby Trike. He is gonna be my berry farmer once he's all grown up, as I don't have one right now because once again, it got eaten. Anyway, I finished my farming and finally made my forge, which I approved of its looks actually.
That looks good. Yeah, I like it.
Anyways, I got the metal smelting and I had enough to make a smithy and a metal pickaxe and then nothing else. I am really poor right now. But moving on, I then farmed all the other resources I needed to make a smithy with. And after I crafted it, I wasn't too impressed with its looks. But anyways, I got my metal pickaxe and repaired my cloth and set out to the metal mountain to get some metal. I killed a few dinos on the way to get some more hide, and I actually took my raft over so I could make a quick escape over the water if I needed to. But anyways, as soon as I beached, I sprinted into the jungle, found 4 nodes, but I wasn't sure what they were.
Is this metal? It is. I like this. This is a cool looking rock.
So after farming the 4 nodes and still being able to move somehow, I got back to my raft and sailed home with my haul. And for the rest of the day, I farmed the rest of the hide I needed to make my trike a saddle and farm some more narco berries with it. And after that, I saw a blue drop coming down. And once I got deeper into the forest to actually get to the drop, it looked like the blue drop was about to explode with how much light was coming out of it. But the drop actually contained a better crossbow, twilla, and some meat jerky, which are all actually pretty useful to be honest. I wanted to go on another metal run to the metal mountain on day 5, but this time I also wanted to get some crystal to finally make a spyglass. So I took my raptor and got back up to my raft and started sailing over to the metal mountain. But there was also a purple drop coming down on the nearby carnivore island. So with me having the attention span of a gnat and me liking shiny things, I quickly changed my course over to the island. But I don't know that it was much of a good use of my time because look at this loot. The only thing of value in here is chitin, but I can farm that in a few minutes by killing some bugs. So after that, I wanted to go to the metal mountain to do what I originally set out to do. But there was a yellow drop coming down on the other side of the island, so once again, farming can wait. But as soon as the drop landed, I finally noticed the new animations the drops had as they landed, and I was pretty mesmerized by it. But I wasn't mesmerized by me not being high enough level to open the drop. So modern problems require modern solutions, so my solution was to kill. I ran over to the bigger part of the island on my raptor and took down a Carno and an RG, which got me just enough experience for my character to reach level 45.
Oh my god. What? What are drops now?
So yeah, it looks like drops definitely got boosted, because you would never get near anything that high quality of loot back on Ark Survival Evolved, and I was not complaining. I mean, the only saddle I'll probably use out of these 4 is the Thylacoleo saddle, but this got my hopes really high for finding better gear and drops now. And I'd also like to say saddles now have durability, so you can't reuse the same saddle for years on end now. Anyway, I finally made my way back to the mainland to scale the metal mountain. I wanted to go to the very peak this time, as I believe there's some crystal nodes up there. The problem is getting up. So after some advanced maneuvering and parkour on the back of my raptor, I found this abandoned structure on the other side of the mountain. It's entirely new to the map, and I think it used to be some sort of castle, but more importantly, it had a staircase that can take you up to the very top of the mountain. And once I finally did reach the top of the mountain, I didn't see anything because of a giant cloud that was blocking all of my vision. But I learned after a quick relog that the clouds go away, and I managed to find myself some crystals. And just warning you, crystals also make this glass breaking sound when you harvest them. I don't think this was super necessary to add at all. It's actually ear piercing. Anyway, after getting around 30 crystal, I got off the mountain and grabbed a little bit more metal and sailed my way back to my base. Just kidding, I sailed back to the Carno Island because there was yet another yellow drop coming down exactly where it was last time. And the loot was less than pleasing, but I did craft a spyglass right before opening it. And I did loot one last blue drop on the island before finally sailing back to my base, and it had some trank arrows that will be useful later on. And it's around this time that I wanted to tame an RG. So I farmed up a few more narcotics with my trike before heading down from my base area to farm up a stone trap and some more stone foundations to expand my base area. But while I was farming for the tame, an alpha raptor appeared and got way too close for comfort.
Oh, it's an alpha raptor. It's an alpha raptor.
So I moved away from the raptor and finished farming what I needed to. But this is when a thought dawned on me. I needed to be level 62 to make an RG saddle, and I'm only level 40 something right now. So if I can get an Explorer No experience buff and kill the alpha raptor, that might shoot me up to level 62 so we can tame an RG very soon. So for the remainder of the day, I farmed up an alpha raptor trap consisting of 1 stone foundation and 4 door frames. I finished finished farming the trap in the morning of day 6. And I also looted a blue drop which came down nearby that had even more trank arrows into it. At this rate, I'm never gonna have to farm narcotics again, and I'm all for it. But I did also craft a bunch more stone arrows because that's how I'm gonna kill the alpha raptor once it's in the trap. And I then placed down the little trap a little ways from my base because I do not want the alpha raptor stumbling by my humble abode by accident. And I also made sure to save my game and relog to make sure I was safe before toggling the walls into door frames since I crashed last time I tried to do this. But I have found that building doesn't actually cause crashes. I started recording this gameplay about 8 hours after the game came out, so it was pretty unstable, so sometimes the simplest things would just make you crash. But anyway, I got the alpha raptor's attention and attempted to trap it.
Go, 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 go. What? They can walk through doors? No!
And I then begged the Bronto to help me, but I was quickly eaten soon after. So anyway, after respawning on a nearby beach because I hadn't placed a bed yet, I made my way back and got my gear while the raptor was distracted. And I then rethought my strategy, and I decided to convert the door frames into windows by picking them up and toggling them. And another nice feature Wildcard added is you can now pick up structures whenever. And also walls are taller now, so I didn't have any concerns about the raptor getting out above the walls if you were worrying about that. But then once the trap was finished, I got the alpha's attention once again and had some more trouble getting it into the trap.
This did not work. This did not work.
But I managed to outsmart it and pull a fast one on it to get it in the trap. And now that it was in, I had to quickly find an explorer node and hope that it wouldn't be able to escape the trap in that time. And I managed to find one inside the hidden lake while fighting a micro raptor and hearing the aloes from earlier still inside the lake. It was very stressful, but I pulled it off because I'm him. And I then took the long way around back to my base on the beach because I wanted to avoid the forest as much as I can. And to my delight, the alpha raptor was still inside the trap when I got back. You see, I knew my plan would work. I never had any doubts or mistakes.
What? They can walk through doors?
And it only took a few shots to go down with a combination of my good crossbow and me only hitting headshots. But even more to my surprise, I got 19 levels from it, which took me up to level 68. So I think you know down that it's RG taming time. So I organized my gear and then made the rest of the RG trap from some of the structures that was used in the alpha raptor trap. And it was also storming this time in game, and man, I just can't get over how good it looks. But towards the end of the day, I set out to the northern mountains to find me an oversized pigeon to tame. I had everything I needed to craft the saddle except the hide. I need about 300 more, but I figured I could easily farm it while waiting for the RG to tame. Day 7, I scaled the big metal mountain next to the volcano, and I made my way all the way to the top in hopes I'd be able to see some RGs. However, I only saw one and it was absolutely garbage. And there were also a ton of clouds taken away from how far I could see. And now I know I can turn the clouds off, but honestly, I don't want to. They look really good and they make the game feel harder and more natural. So anyway, I made my way back down the mountain more inland this time to continue my search. And the decline was hurried up by a pack of raptors chasing me out. And I eventually made my way towards the maw, which was the land between the volcano and the mountain. And I found a level 135 RG.
135. We want that. We want that. We want that one.
And I then found a little hill where I thought I could safely tame the RG. So I placed down the trap in which I'm praying RGs can't fit through doorways, but I'm 99% sure that they can. So anyways, I shot a few tranks at the RG to get its attention, and I hit an actual snipe on it.
So I can just tag it. Oh, I hit it. Oh my god.
So yeah, I crashed once again. This is why I said I think simple things just make the game crash every once in a while. I'm not even having performance issues, my PC's absolutely eating this game alive and I'm still crashing. But luckily, I've been sporadically saving my game ever since I crashed that first time. And the last time I saved was right before I built the trap. And I'd also like to give a special thanks to my chat for reminding me to save my game every once in a while. You guys are real ones. So anyway, I rebuilt the trap and had to put a little bit more effort into getting the RG in the trap, but once I got it, it was stuck inside.
I think I got it. Yes! You guys doubted me. Do not doubt me.
So yeah, I was getting a little overconfident, but it doesn't matter. I was now tranking out a level 135 RG on day 7 in Ark Survival Ascended. I don't know why that information was necessary, but as I was putting trank arrows into it, I noticed it was getting a little too bloody for me to be comfortable with putting more arrows into it. So I wanted to kill one of those raptors that had chased me earlier and feed the body for it to heal so I could safely knock it out. But after killing the whole pack and nearly losing my raptor, I realized I couldn't even drag their bodies down to the RG for some reason. So I ended up placing a sleeping bag to respawn it and sacrificing myself to heal the RG. And it took some coaxing, but eventually she gave in and ate me.
I'm on. Kill me. Yes.
And once it finally killed me, I respawned and knocked it out. And it's now time for me to get the hide I need to craft its saddle. I really don't want to lead it back down to my base on my raptor because that'll be way too dangerous. So I started killing some smaller dinos to get low amounts of hide until I eventually killed a diplo, which gave me a ton. So with me having over 5,000 hours of experience in Ark Survival Evolved, I knew a bunch of diplos would spawn down by the black sand beaches over near the redwoods. So I made my way down and instantly spotted a diplo, which I tried to kill, but I got swarmed by a ton of hellish creatures that spawn inside the redwoods. So I wasn't able to kill that one, but there was another one across the river once again that I wanted to kill. But if I could go back in time and tell myself to stay on that side of the river, I would.
Again. That's a baryonyx. You're joking. I jumped right onto it. Greer is dead. Greer is dead.
So yeah, I ended up losing my raptor named Greer, which I named after a stream donation. I mean, come on, if you watch the clip back, you can't easily see the baryonyx until I was already mid-jump. What was I supposed to do? So anyway, I'm on foot now with my armor nearly broken in one of the most dangerous parts of the map. But I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna get the hide I need, tame the RG, and make the saddle to fly back to my base. But after killing one more terror bird for hide and being chased back up the mountains by raptors, I decided to tame the RG and craft some parachutes to jump off the mountain and parachute back to my base. Let's face it, if I stay here, I'm gonna die, and so is my RG. So I'd rather play it safe and farm the hide back near the safety of my base. So I tamed the RG using some raw meat and crafted a few more bullets and parachutes by the end of the day and climbed up the mountain further. I spent the first 5 minutes of day 8 scaling the mountain to get a high enough elevation where I could make the most distance in one jump, and I was dehydrated, freezing, and running out of food. So I made it to a decent height and took one last look around the so beautiful yet so dangerous island.
Look, oh my god, look at that, guys, though. I know I'm in a bad situation, but look how pretty that looks.
And after one last prayer to the Ark gods, I took my leap of faith and floated above the clouds, hoping to land nearby my base. And to my surprise, I actually landed right next to the hill where I was based on. So I somehow made it home, and my RG was also named Protein Shake. I don't know why, but my chat really wanted it, and a bidding war was even started for it to be named Protein Shake. But anyways, once I got back to base, I'd placed some walls that I'd taken from the trap to secure my base a little bit more, and I reorganized the inside. And I then spent the next 10 minutes running around the beaches and killing small dinos for hide until I finally had an RG saddle. Flight was now possible for me. And on my way back to my base, the Ark gods surprised me with a blue drop with a ring. And I didn't think ring drops were in the game anymore, so I was very surprised to see one.
Is that drop have a ring? Oh my gosh. This could be good.
Anyway, it gave me a pretty decent fur chest piece and some other decent resources. And once I finally made it back to my base, I saddled my RG and took flight. And I then spent the rest of the day flying around the map, getting explore notes and leveling up my RG. And I even killed an alpha raptor and eventually made my way up to the volcano where there was a whole giga inside. But there were also a bunch of resources up there, and I don't mind if I take them. I was still farming away in the morning of day 9, and I got a decent amount of metal and obsidian, and I also wanted to farm some crystal inside the volcano since there's a ton in there. But remember that giga that was inside the volcano? Well, I thought that was going to prevent me from farming, but it turns out that it actually died inside the lava, and I was able to loot it and harvest it for its hide. So that was quite possibly the easiest giga heart retrieved in the history of Ark Survival Ascended so far. But anyways, I farmed some crystal with its horrible shattering noises and flew back to my base. But on the way back, I put my journeyman fur armor to use and flew into the snow to loot a pretty mid purple drop.
I don't know if that's actually anything good.
Anyway, now that I have RG and some resources, I want to fix up my base. And since this game looks so nice, I want my base to look nice too. I was only gonna build a little shack for now, but I'll expand it later. So I spent the rest of the day farming and building, but I think this montage paints a better picture than my words. The first half of day 10 was spent doing a mukbang live on stream. I was actually just watching the sunrise and eating lunch since you boys got to stay fueled up to provide you guys that quality content. And join my Discord in the link in the description to find out what I was eating and so you don't miss another one of my streams where you can watch the sunrise with me and hear some Grandy eating ASMR. Anyway, I finally got to work about 20 minutes into day 10 and I wanted to finish my house in the next few days so I can get into taming some dinos. Because I'm not gonna lie, farming all these structures by hand on these low rates I'm playing on is slowly killing me. And also my rates and settings are in the description if you want to check them out for yourself. But anyways, I continued building onto my house and adding these pillars onto my wraparound porch. But I then quickly got distracted by a purple drop which was coming down nearby. And it actually gave me a good Ankylo saddle which is going to be useful later on. And yes, I'm saying it correctly now, Ankylo. It's a new game, so there's a new me. And I just got tired of you all flaming me for how I say Ankylo. Anyways, after that, I farmed some more wood with my hatchet to craft more pillars and these new railings that look awesome. And I also added some stairs and added the railings on top of them to make it more realistic, and I was super happy with it.
Oh, not gonna lie, this is looking better. I got a super cool idea, I think. I hope.
But that idea didn't turn out nearly as good as I wanted it to. I tried adding these railings on the roof to make it look better, but I ended up just taking them off. And to finish off the day, I did even more wood farming to craft more pillars and ceilings to make a small balcony / landing platform on the back of my house. This was partially for looks, but more for functionality. I wanted to be able to easily unload my metal into the forges or other resources into my crafting equipment. So this platform allows me to drop the dino I was using to farm or land a bird with all the resources right next to my forges, smithy, or fabricator. Day 11 started with some more farming, this time to craft forges. But when I landed back on my base to actually try and craft the metal smelters, I misstepped. So obviously I need to place some more railings there to make this platform idiot proof because it's obvious I'm an idiot. But anyways, after placing the railings, I looted quite possibly the worst purple drop with a ring of all time.
What?
I'm not sure why it's so bad, but whatever. Anyway, going back to those forges I wanted to craft at the beginning of the day, I couldn't even craft them because I was missing the hide. So I started killing some nearby dinos, and I even killed a Bronto which had 2 babies which I can now claim, and obviously I did. I mean, I really only needed one of them, but I have 2 now. But I then proceeded to lead them back to my base, which took forever because, well, they're Brontos. Anyway, I finally did get back to farming some hide before getting distracted by a red drop coming down on Carno Island, which honestly didn't have that good of loot inside of it. I'm really hoping drops didn't get nerfed already, but there is a serious loot gap between what I was getting when I first started playing and now. And all I got out of the red drop was some polymer and a car saddle, and that's really about it. And I then proceeded to loot 2 more drops, which were both bad, and I got the rest of the hide I needed to craft 3 more forges. So when I returned back to my base, I placed down all the forges with the windows behind them so I could access them from the landing platform. And just before the end of the day, I farmed a little bit more wood and crafting 2 more large storage boxes because I was already running out of space in my shack. I know it's really small right now, but I'll be expanding on it to the future to house more storage, industrial machines, and other stuff I'm gonna need. Day 12, I loaded in to see a yellow drop coming down on the metal mountain, a purple drop coming down on Carno Island, and another one coming down right next to my base. Now, even with these drops being pretty mid lately, I can't pass these up. So I first flew out to the metal mountain where there was a Giga and a Rex waiting for me. I haven't even done a dino wipe or anything, so it's beyond me how I found 2 Gigas in 12 days, but all I know is I'm not going anywhere near it. But that didn't stop me from still trying to get the yellow drop.
We're going for it.
Huh?
Oh! Big mistake. Why? Oh, that was close. That was really close.
So after putting down the Rex who was guarding the drop with his life because his AI was too smart to walk off the cliff, I collected my prize. Yeah, once again, that was not worth it. And neither were the 2 purple drops. What is happening here? But anyways, now I'm ready to start taming. And I first either want to tame an Anki or a Dodic because I have a saddle for both and it's just easier that way. So I repaired my crossbow and got all the narcotics and trinks I would need and set out on my RG to look for a tame and explore the island for the first time really. But that's not before I got distracted by a yellow drop with a ring coming down where the twin pillars used to be. And once again, it was absolutely terrible. And the next 20 minutes were spent flying around and looking for my future metal farming buddy. But the problem with searching for smaller dinos like Ankylos in the sky is that you can't really see where they are. The combination of ASA having more trees, bigger foliage, and general shadows and light rays, it's really hard to determine what's a dino and what's a rock sometimes. And I was beginning to lose all hope until I was flying down near a river west of the volcano where I thought I heard the faint sound of an Anki fighting for its life. And I'm now gonna give you 5 seconds to spot the Anki before I do. And if you don't spot it before me, you have to donate me your entire bank account balance. Yes, this is a threat.
Maybe. Oh yeah, there is one.
And luckily for the spiky dude, he was level 130, so I saved him and began flying back to my base. Yeah, and if he was a lower level, I definitely would have let him die. Day 13 started with me knocking the Ankylo out. And it knocked out surprisingly quick because I have a decent crossbow and I only hit dingers into its head. But anyways, I then farmed some Mayho berries with my Bronto to feed it, and it was going to take a little while to tame, so I have some time to do some other things. And by other things, I meant opening this purple drop right next to my base. And it actually had some decent loot, like 65 metal ingots and some gunpowder if you consider that decent loot. But after that, I started farming some wood. Like, a lot of wood. I wanted to fill up my forges with wood so I could do a big metal run as soon as my Ankylo wakes up. But I encountered a problem. A crash. It wasn't a huge issue as I got pretty good at saving my game every few minutes, but these crashes are really starting to get annoying. And I believe it's a memory issue from looking over at the Ark official Discord, and it's still not fixed as I'm recording this voiceover. But I'm really hoping it does get fixed soon, because if not, I'm gonna get involved. That's the corniest thing I've ever said. Please take that out. Anyway, I logged back in and finished farming all the wood until each forge had about 200 wood. And I also then started cooking some more meat as well as crafting myself a long neck rifle. I had some bullets from drops and some gunpowder that I got earlier, but I really just needed a better weapon to protect myself myself if I ever got attacked on foot for some reason. And at this point, the Anki still had a while to go before it tamed. So I set back out to the mountains in search of a Dodic this time to hopefully start taming. And it's also at this point where I realized I was hitting around 30 FPS. Now, playing on one of the best PCs money can buy right now, this is very concerning. So I started messing around with turning the fog and clouds off and on to hopefully try and get some more frames. I really didn't want to turn down the overall game resolution because of how darn good it looked, but seriously, who do they expect to be able to play this game? Anyway, I'll be experimenting with toggling little details like these on and off over the next few days. But finally, towards the end of the day, I looted a purple drop with a ramshackle long neck rifle. Day 14, I finally returned to my base after not finding anything worth taming. But my Anki was now tamed, so that's a plus. And I had also just watched a video on how to properly use the in-game map, which can now be done in your inventory to do more advanced mechanics like placing waypoints and stuff. And after that, I saddled up my Ankylo and instantly set out to the Metal Mountain to farm some of that oh valuable white shiny goodness. But I did have to be careful as the Giga was still at the peak of the mountain, but I should be safe towards the bottom. But I do have to say I was less than impressed with the amount of metal my Ankylo was actually farming.
What? That's some poverty metal, dude. Oh my god.
But after farming most of the metal nodes I could safely farm on the northeastern mountain, I flew across the river westward toward the mountain where I tamed my RG and continued my farming spree. And I was also keeping the stone and flint my Anki was collecting in my RG simply because I didn't feel like having to farm those resources again when I didn't have to. And lastly, I farmed some crystal that was atop the mountain before flying back to my base and absolutely loading up my forges. And after that, I ended off the day by killing an alpha raptor that was near my base and flying south once again to look for some more dinos to tame. I was out by the green obelisk in the morning of day 15, and I was fighting a Carno and a few other creatures that were also fighting a giant beaver. I wanted to find out what level the dude was so I could potentially tame him to be my wood farmer, but I wasn't able to save him under the water and he was killed. But now that there was no one guarding his dam, I took the goods and ran. If the owner is no longer around to care about his stuff, is it still considered stealing? Probably, but this is Ark and I don't care. So anyways, I continued down the river hoping to find some more giant beavers, but that's when I spotted a level 130 Pteranodon. This is the first level high PT I've found so far, and I'm gonna tame it. And it only took one bola, 2 trank arrows, and 7 minutes on prime meat to tame after I killed a Spino. I'd say a pretty valid use of my time. And I didn't want to go back to my base just yet, so I whistled the bird to follow me and kept looking. And I found 2 more giant beavers downstream, but they were both garbage levels and weren't worth me taming. So eventually I cut my losses and returned back to my base. And once there, I named my PT stats so I could remember them for future breeding purposes. I didn't want to be riding around on an unimprinted one of these birds for too long as they weren't very strong at all. And I spent the rest of the day flying around getting the bird some explore notes to quickly level them up. And I also started experiencing some graphic issues where the light looks super weird, but a relog would fix it. These issues are starting to get super annoying. I was still on the hunt for some good bargain tames on day 16, and I was flying past the redwoods when I spotted a level 150 male Pteranodon. I already had a male, but you can't pass up a max level like that. And there wasn't anything special about the tame. It had some better health and stamina, but my current bird has better weight, so I'm gonna have to breed that out when I find a female. But after that, the bird finished taming and I took it back to my base and refueled my forges so they can keep producing me some metal. And then I set back out Yep, I just crashed, doing absolutely nothing that would even make my PC struggle. And I know it's not my computer's issue. I'll put a screenshot on screen right now of Wildcard acknowledging the issue. It's not me, guys, I swear. But after that, I got back and continued searching for a high-level female bird now. And it didn't take me too long to find a level 140 female. The process of looking for dinos to tame is now much faster because I'm not on the back of the RG, which is super slow. And by the end of the day, the bird finished taming and I took it back to my base. Day 17 started with me crafting and placing a preserving bin. I mean, I wish that's what happened. I actually only crafted the preserving bin, and when going to place it, I crashed. And I was starting to get really fed up with these constant crashes.
Come on, man. It's ridiculous.
But when I finally got back into the game after having to close it and relaunch it, I did manage to successfully place the preserving bin this time. And I also crafted some spark powder to keep it running. But now I want to secure my base area even more. I'm starting to have more tames outside my house, and I don't want a Rex or an Alpha Raptor to run up and randomly start eating them. So I decided it's finally time for me to place some spike walls and a behemoth gate. So farming for those structures went a little like this. And then a little like this. Until I had all the resources I needed to craft a stone behemoth gate and a gate frame. And I had gotten all the stone from my past metal run. I knew it would come in clutch because farming over 1,000 stone you need for the pair would really suck farming by hand.
Oh my god, are you kidding, man? This is a joke, dude. Come on.
Yeah, that's another crash for the books. Luckily, I had saved right after I farmed all the resources, and I managed to finish crafting the gates alright this time. And after crafting the gates for a second time, I crafted some of the spike walls I needed to block off the land next to the gate. And placing them was going good. I even got the whole behemoth gate down. But when I tried to open it, things went downhill.
Oh my god, are you kidding? That's a joke. I'm going to bed. I can't deal with this right now. Are you kidding me? That's a legitimate joke, man. Come on.
Anyways, I finally got the behemoth gate and all the spike walls down I needed by the end of the day. But to keep it short, I crashed 3 more times while doing so. It was a real pain. And after that, the forges needed to be refueled because I have been cooking the metal this whole time. So after committing some more crimes against nature, I refilled my forges and ended the day by breeding my level 150 tamed PT with a level 140 female that I tamed. Day 18, I discovered I could actually incubate the egg inside of my base with the heat from the forges. And the egg only took about 2.5 minutes to incubate. So there wasn't that much time to do anything in between, so I kind of just stared at it while it did its thing. And then I spent half of the day raising it inside my base as well because it wasn't smart enough to follow me out through the door. And I did get 100% imprint on it because luckily it wanted a cuddle. And once again, my breeding and raising settings will be in the description if you want to check them out for yourself. But it only hit me after I hatched the egg that if this thing had wanted something other than a cuddle or a walk, I'd kind of be screwed. And I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but there aren't any cryopods yet in Ark Survival Ascended. So if it wanted kibble to imprint, I probably would have put it down and raised a new one. And lastly, I also named the bird Bones for no reason at all. I just thought it was a decent name. But anyway, once Bones was fully grown, I saddled her up and took her out to do some power leveling so she wasn't terrible. And I started with getting an Explorer note on top of one of the snow mountains. And then I got one behind the frozen waterfall on the northern shore. And I also looted a red and purple drop on my way back to base. But they were both unnoteworthy, so I don't know why I'm even talking about them right now. Anyway, I spent some time looking for a good theory or a giant beaver to tame because I still wanted a wood farmer. And I did find some giant beaver dams in the hidden lake, so a little later on I returned with my RG and looted absolutely everything out of them, wood included. And working towards the last few minutes of the day, I added 4 more foundations on the side of my base and opened up the wall to make a doorway. I wanted to make a small addition to the place and make it a storage room because, as I said earlier, I was running out of storage space already. And I put the wood I got from the beaver dams to good use because after placing the windows in, I placed 10 large wooden storage boxes. I should not run out of storage for a while. I placed in a reinforced door to seal off the new addition on day 19, and I then crafted out 4 more ramps for the roof, but I couldn't afford the slope walls, so I had to venture back out and farm some wood where a yellow drop was coming down. And once I had the slope walls, I opened the drop to get a bunch of metal structures, which is cool, but I doubt I'll ever actually use them because I'm playing on single player. I mean, they could protect me from a Giga, so I might make a safe room or something, but if a Giga gets to my base, it's game over and I might as well restart. But anyway, I took the metal structures and flew back to my base to finish the roof addition. But I wasn't completely done with it yet because I wanted to craft a few of these quarter ceilings to put on it. They're brand new to the game, and since I'm not going to be expanding the wraparound porch around the new addition, I think they'll look very nice. But after only farming a few up to test it out, I saw a yellow drop floating in the air right above my base.
What the?
And after investigating it a little bit, I realized the drop has technically landed, even though it's still floating. But after some quick thinking and crafting, I jumped off the back of my bird, deployed a parachute, and whistled for the bird to follow me. And I managed to land on the drop, but I had used my only parachute that I had. And the drop had decent loot, but more importantly, I clutched up once again with having my PT fly over to me and me riding it and safely getting off the drop. So after depositing my newly acquired riches, I finished crafting and placing the quarter ceilings, and I was pretty happy with my handiwork on my house.
This base is insane. You guys have never seen a better base than this. Are you kidding me? I'm loving this, dude. Call me Chip and Joanna Games because I'm building in this Ark video.
Okay, I may have been getting a little overconfident, but come on. You have to admit this is one of the better bases I've ever built, and with these insane graphics, it's smash worthy. But now that I've been building my base for a while, I'm ready to go out and finally find me a wood farmer that I've been looking for. I've decided I want to tame a Theory to farm my wood, and because I'm gonna need it for a boss army of Theories to take down the Alpha Dragon. So I spent some time getting geared up to brace the wild. I made more parachutes and bolas to keep me alive, and even got some other gear to tame the Theory. You need a trap to tame a Theory because they're fast and they hit like trucks. And with them having better pathfinding AIs, I'm not gonna be anywhere near an uncaged high level Theory that's mad at me. So I started collecting some stone structures for a trap of my own, but I managed to get even more from a purple drop with a ring in the hidden lake. These drops are starting to redeem themselves, but this still isn't good loot by any means. Anyway, I returned back to farm the rest of the trap that I needed, and I then spent the rest of the day flying towards the green obelisk in search of a tickle chicken of my own. Day 20, and I found a lot of Theories. Like, I saw an ungodly amount of Theories. I haven't even turned up the dino spawn rates or anything. It was like really weird, but the problem was none of them were good levels. The max level on this map is level 150, but the island is notorious for spawning low levels, which is why I considered taming this level 120.
Ooh. That's debatable, man.
But ultimately, I decided against it because I'm gonna need the best Theories in the game to eventually take down this Alpha Dragon, and I might even bring a few into the Overseer fight with me. But yeah, I continued circling around the map for the rest of the day, once again finding a bunch more Theories, but none worth taming. I was still searching for a Theory into day 21, and once again, I wasn't having any problems finding Theories, but they were all butt cheeks and not worth taming. And I was still sticking around the green obelisk because that's where I find most of the Theories, but that's also when I found another unicorn. Now, my mic was turned off while I was recording this part, but it's probably probably a good thing because I was screaming when I found it, and I wanted to avenge Sprinkles. But I didn't want to tame this unicorn on Mayho berries, as that would take too long and be very dangerous with all these other dinos around. So I remembered I had some crops back in my base that would heavily speed up the taming process, if not instantly tame it. So I spent a few minutes flying back to my base, and when I arrived, I took my whole stock of rock carrots which I collected from drops over time from my preserving bin. Now 20 doesn't seem like a lot, but these dudes are super effective at taming equus and unicorns. So I then set back off to the unicorn on the back of my RG this time, because I'm gonna carry it back to my base when I tame it. Basically because there's no way I'm running it through the deadliest part of the island back to my base. And also, I don't know what I'm gonna do when I need to tame bigger dinos like Rexes and Megatheriums. I'm probably gonna need to tame a Quetzal and put a giant platform on the back to airlift them, but now I can only imagine what I'm gonna have to do when I have to transit my boss dinos to the obelisks. Yeah, I really don't want to think about that right now. I'm gonna tame this unicorn instead right now. And just as I expected, it instantly tamed it. These rock carrots are something else. Anyway, I named the unicorn Sprinkles V2. Hey, I had to commemorate the first Sprinkles somehow. So directly after giving Sprinkles V2 their new name, I had to relog before flying back to my base because of this weird glitch that happens every once in a while where my mouse gets stuck on the screen and I can't turn my character. It's really annoying, but it's not the end of the world. So anyway, I flew Sprinkles 2 back to my base and switched birds again once again back to my PT and set back out. And I spent the rest of the day flapping. That's me trying to tell you guys I spent the rest of the day flying around without finding a decent theory to tame. I'm really starting to dislike this island and its bad levels. But day 22. Day 22, my people. You know what? Day 22, just watch.
Oh my god. That took a second to process. Oh my god.
I guess Ark was blessing me for having some patience. Anyway, I can't celebrate anymore because I need to get this dude in a trap and knocked out. So, of course, I assembled the trap. And once I was done putting the trap together, I couldn't find the theory.
Where is that? How did you get over there?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, when I couldn't find the theory, I was slowly losing my will to live. But no worries though, because I now have it in the trap and I'm shooting tranq arrows into it. And once the theory was knocked unconscious, I threw some narcotics into its inventory and quickly took off back to my base. You see, Therazinos lose torpidity very fast. Like faster than a boss level crack addict. They either have some insane tolerance or just build different, I don't really know. But anyway, I was flying back to my base to grab the rest of the crops as I needed to tame them Therazino the fastest. And I had to be quick because even if I took a few minutes too long, that dude would be back up and awake by the time I got back. So as soon as I returned back to my humble abode, I grabbed the rock carrots and some more save roots I had from a drop as well. And I also grabbed the rest of the narcotics I had on my base just in case. And on the way back, I opened a purple drop with some questionable loot in it.
Whoa. I know I'm underage, but we're getting lit tonight.
But anyway, when I returned, my theory was gone, so I'm just gonna have to look for another high level all over again. Just kidding, it was there. I would uninstall Ark if that happened. But I did have to spend the rest of the day waiting for it to tame after I put the crops into it. Crops are way better than berries, but they still take forever to tame in herbivores. The Therazino finally finished taming in just over 6 minutes into day 23. And after naming the Tickle Chicken its stats, I had the realization I have no good way of getting it back to my base.
Oh my god, how am I gonna get this back to my base? I didn't think about this one. And now my game's broke. What is my arm?
Yeah, I didn't think this one through too well. But after using a few problem-solving skills, I devised a plan. I would fly back to my base, farm up a Therazino saddle, then return back and walk the theory back home with my PT following me. It wasn't a great plan, but it's the only one I had, so I put it into action. But once I made it back home, I realized I had basically no hide to make the saddle. So I'd spent some time killing the surrounding dinos for their hides with my RG until I finally managed to craft the saddle by the end of the day. And my RG is also still my strongest dino to kill other dinos with, which honestly kinda sucks because it's really not that strong at all. Day 24 started with me flying back out towards the green obelisk for like the millionth time. I don't know. I hate flying back out here now. But anyways, I saddled the theory as soon as I arrived and got to work instantly killing a Diplo. This is because I actually decided I would make a raft and walk a short distance to the east coast and sail home instead of walking half the map directly through a wreck spawning area. And farming the raft was made very easy because my theory could farm hide and wood very well. But I did have to run through the swamp with my PT whistled to follow me, which was actually pretty scary considering the last time I was over here I lost both of my tames. But I managed to make it to the coast, place down the raft, and sail home. And my PT also followed me home in the air because it's basically as soon as I set sail, it was pushed off by a Sarco. I nearly had a PTSD attack like from last time, but I made it away. And I finally made it home about halfway through the day, and I then immediately set back out with my theory once again, but this time with my RG whistled to follow me. I wanted to farm a bunch of wood to fill my forges and just to have. And this wood farming strategy was much better than just hitting trees with my hatchet. Oh my god. That was horrible. But anyway, later on, I filled my forges with a few stacks of wood and set out once again with my RG and Enki for a metal run. I still had a decent amount of metal at my base from the first metal run, but I wanted even more, because I'm greedy. I was farming metal all over the volcano on day 25, and I had pretty much farmed all the good metal nodes on the nearby metal mountain. And I don't know if I'm just not seeing them, but I swear there is less metal on this map than there was back on Ark Survival Evolved. I guess they do look much more like normal rocks now, only be able to be identified by the shiny streaks on them. But anyway, I depleted the island for more of its natural resources and set back off towards my base. But on the way back, I noticed a red drop coming down and that the sun looked very weird this morning.
What? Is it just me, or does that sun look like it's about to explode?
Anyway, that's not that important, but it looks like one of the stars that might go supernova or something. I don't really know, I skip school to play Ark usually. But more importantly, that red drop was still coming down and it had some juicy loot inside.
Oh, if only that was a blueprint.
Yeah, that Theory Saddle is going to be very useful in the dragon boss fights. And as I said, I wish it was a blueprint so I could craft as many of them as I wanted to, but I can't complain with this. But moving on, I finally made it back to my base and dropped the Enki off on my balcony to instantly crash straight after. No big deal, I've definitely saved the game between now and the time I finished farming metal. And when trying to relaunch the game, you can accidentally hear me opening Ark Survival Evolved.
Oh! I just launched. Wrong game.
Anyway, once I finally made it in, I was in the air and I had to use a parachute to save myself. But the worst thing of all, my Theory Saddle was gone.
Wait. No! We didn't get the Theory Saddle. Screw this game, man.
Yeah, it's safe to say I was not too happy about that.
Why is the sky yellow?
And yeah, you could tell this loss was really affecting me because of the weird voice I just did right there. But anyway, I made it back to my base once again, minus the Theory Saddle. And I loaded up my forges with a buttload of metal to begin smelting. And after that, I finally made a fabricator, literally a quarter of the way through this 100 days. I'm really gonna have to pick up the pace. But the problem was, I didn't have any place to put it.
Where am I gonna put this? I literally just expanded my base and I'm already out of space.
So I'm gonna need to expand my base once again. But before I do that, I want to tame a Dodic to make farming stone structures much more easier. So I grabbed a few pieces of gear from my house and set out and spent the rest of the day looking for more of these rolly stone boys. But the problem with finding one of these dudes is that they look exactly like rocks. They're very small, round, and most of them are a gray color. And combine that all with them barely moving, you can classify them as rocks. That's what they are, and I might as well be shooting trank arrows into a rock. Mostly because I wasn't finding a single Dodic. I was looking everywhere for one of these dudes, but it's just like my luck with girls, they were all hiding from me in fear that I would shoot them with trank arrows. Yeah, that sounded very wrong. Anyway, I finally found one about halfway through day 26. It was a level 120, which is incredible, but all it was gonna do is farm me some stone, so it really doesn't need to be that great. So I successfully knocked down my future rock farmer, and then I farmed 4 spike walls to protect him because most things in the redwoods like to eat Dodics, and that's exactly where I'm taming this guy. And after that, I returned to my base while my Dodic was losing food. To farm Mayho berries with my Bronto and switched to my RG so I'll be able to carry him back to my base. And I also brought the saddle so I could protect him a little bit more as soon as he was tamed. Day 27 and I learned Dodics take a long time to tame, but luckily I had missed out on most of the time waiting to tame because the little rock was losing food while I flew back across the map. So the Dodic only tamed 8 minutes into day 27 and I named him Rockefeller because he's a rock and a feller, I guess. Anyways, I then grabbed the Dode with my RG and took him back to my base to be my stone farmer forever. And I put him straight to work farming some rocks next to my base that were getting on my nerves. And speaking of stuff getting on my nerves, I was missing some quarter ceilings surrounding my house, so I crafted a few of those and finished it off. But I guess it's not actually finished because I want to build a whole nother expansion onto the house to house my artifacts and industrial machines like my fabricator. But I decided I would make a completely separate building with the stone foundation platform linking the two. So after a little bit of experimenting, I found the shape that I liked. These triangle foundations edging along the cliff until I could bring them to enough space to make a rectangular shaped platform. And I then crafted a few more normal stone foundations to finish off the base platform by the end of the day. The grinding continued into day 28. I had the base platform finished. I believe it was a 3x7. I'm not totally sure, but it doesn't matter. And I then placed 2 windows and finally placed my fabricator. This is progress, baby. I don't care what you say. Anyway, I grabbed a few more resources from the storage boxes and crafted my first generator. And I also unlocked a bunch of engrams I'm gonna need going forward, mostly industrial structures. But moving on, I placed a few more windows down, then placed my generator down to make sure I didn't have it sticking out through the wall. And in Ark Survival Ascended, generators were upgraded to no longer need cables to power structures, which is honestly really nice. So any structure that requires power will now receive it cable free as long as it's inside the generator's sphere of power. That sounded really cool, I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, I think the range of the generator is pretty big, so if you have a smaller base like me, you're gonna be just fine powering everything you need. And also, fabricators now use power from generators, which is awesome. No more of having to have gas in both. This is a valid upgrade, and and I approve this message. But we'll have to see if chemistry benches still need power and gas to run. I really hope that they don't. Anyways, after that, I spent a little bit more time placing stone structures down to continue the build on my industrial workshop, which is what I'm gonna call it. And I also placed this large cellar door on the roof because I plan on dropping farming dinos in here once I have an industrial forge. This took the place of hatch frames and large trapdoors, which are no longer in the game. So after placing a stone dinosaur gate to finish working on the workshop for now, I gathered up some taming gear because I want to tame a Thylacoleo. I'm gonna use a Thyla as my main cave exploration creature because they're small and have decent health and damage. But instead of refarming a stone trap, I decided to fly back out towards the green obelisk and repair the one I'd used to tame a Theory and reuse that one. Reduce, reuse, recycle, baby. Anyways, I also opened a purple and a yellow drop on the flight out there, but I didn't really get anything of value besides its cooked mutton I'm gonna use to tame the Thyla. Anyway, I finally arrived at the trap's location, and I farmed a few resources before repairing it all and then picking them up. And then I took off for probably the most dangerous part of the map. The redwoods. I have to fly around the redwoods scouting up and down the giant trees for Thylas, while avoiding getting pounced off the back of my bird, which should be easy. It's not gonna be easy, I don't know what I'm saying. And as soon as I entered the redwoods, I was greeted by a crappy level Thyla who I'm assuming wanted to meet his favorite YouTuber and got too excited.
Whoa. Somebody missed me? Ah, it was you.
Yeah, but I did say it was a crappy level, so I killed it. And I would kill a few of these really bad level Thylas. I'm trying to make some space for a high level to spawn in. And I would also be collecting their claws because I'm gonna need them to start a boss fight eventually. So anyways, I spent the rest of the day searching around the redwoods, finding no Thylas worthy of becoming my caving slut. I can't say that. Day 29 and the search continued, and I was still not finding any worthy contenders to tame. And I actually got pounced off the back of my bird twice, and both times nearly ended with my death. But I managed to make a quick escape because I'm quickly becoming the best Ark Survival Ascended player of all time. But to top it all off, when I was trying to get back on my bird after a second attack, I crashed. Bruh.
Bro, are you kidding?
Anyways, once I finally got back into the game, I decided, you know, maybe this is my sign to leave the redwoods, and that's what I did. So I flew back to my base, but I still have to tame a Thyla at some point. But I didn't really spend too much time at my base because I just repaired my armor and then set back out to the redwoods because I'm gonna get this Thyla whether it kills me or not. And I guess the Ark gods have decided to pity me because I didn't even make it into the redwoods before I found the level 145 Thyla.
Oh my god. We're taming that.
So I quickly assembled a trap, and I got the murder kitty inside the trap by luring him in with my PT. And then, as most of you all know by now, I shot a bunch of trank arrows into him until he fell unconscious. But I couldn't sit around waiting to tame this guy like my other tames. Thylas actually prefer cooked meat more than raw meat for some odd reason. I guess they learned how to cook meat in the wild and decided it's way better than this disgusting raw meat, but either way, I need cooked meat. More specifically, cooked prime meat. So I flew back to my base and instantly placed an industrial grill, which I had gotten from a drop. I'm not sure if I showed me looting the drop or I got it, but so much has happened in this video already, it's all starting to blur together. Anyway, I placed the grill and then took off and killed a Bronto close to my base with my RD, which gave me 4 raw prime meat. I cooked the meat in the very early morning of day 30, and it looks like the industrial grill also had some changes done to it as each piece of meat now cooks individually rather than all 12 at once. And I'd say I like this method better than the old one, so another valid change. Anyway, I now have 3 cooked lamb chops and 4 cooked prime meat, which should be able to tame the Thyla pretty effectively. So I flew back to the still unconscious Thyla and threw the meat into its inventory, which would luckily be enough to tame it. But I had to spend a few more minutes waiting for it to wake up and be mine. But right before I was about to finish taming, I realized I have no good way of getting this dude back to my base.
Wait, I can't get this home.
So once again, I flew back to my base. This time, I deposited all of my taming gear and grabbed the Mastercraft Thyla saddle I got very early on in my playthrough. I knew this thing would come in handy. And after that, I flew back to my now tamed Thyla and I named him Herbert. A fitting name for a warrior that would retrieve artifacts from the depth of hell with me later on. Anyways, I saddled up Herbert, whistled Bones to follow me, and then ran all the way back home. And once I finally made it back home, I placed a bunk bed in the workshop, which I had just gotten from a purple drop right outside my base. So I'd now finally have a place to respawn, because that's actually the first bed I've placed at my base. But moving on, I was starting to run low on rifle bullets. And with the long neck rifle being my primary defense when I'm on foot, I could not allow that. So I crafted some gunpowder from the burnt charcoal from my forges and made some more freedom rounds. And to end off the day, I decided to go power leveling with my Thyla. The massacre continued into day 31, and actually it continued all the way throughout the entirety of the day. So you know, I'm just gonna have my editor cut back to that super epic montage. Wait, but before that, I'd like to say I legit spotted another level 145 Thyla about halfway through the day.
What? Another 145?
But I didn't tame it because it was a male, and so was Herbert. So I think it'd be a pretty big waste of time and resources to tame the dude, so I just let him go. Anyways, back to the montage. finally returned to my base in the morning of day 32, and I immediately put my newly acquired resources away from my hunting party, and I was now starting to collect a decent amount of tributes needed for the boss fights. But speaking of those boss fights, I also need artifacts, and I've decided I want to fight the Megapithecus first, and that's going to require the artifact of the Devourer, Brute, and Pack. The artifact of the Brute is deep and in the easy underwater cave, and the artifact of the Pack is on the complete other side of the island. But however, the artifact of the Devourer happens to be in a cave just across the water from my base on Carno Island. So now that my Thyla has some decent levels on him, I decided it's now a good time as any to retrieve my first artifact. So I organized myself for a Splunking expedition and force-fed Herbert some raw meat to get his health up. And I then rode my murder kitty down to the beach and put him on the raft. I decided to sail over to the island instead of using my RG to carry us over, mostly because so I didn't have to worry about the RG when I was in the cave. But now that I'm sailing over, I just like to say I'm really excited to explore these caves, as they should look amazing with the new graphics and features added to them. Anyway, a few minutes later, I beached on the other side of Carno Island, and I immediately sprinted into the entrance of the cave, which hadn't changed that much since Ark Survival Evolved. But it's safe to say the inside has definitely changed.
This cave looks crazy, man.
Anyway, after that, I had a quick scare because I almost wasn't able to fit my Thyla deeper into the cave. But after some skillful maneuvering and breaking some crystal nodes, I managed to squeeze through.
Oh, I made it. I hope I can get back out.
Anyway, I continued to venture deeper into the cave, swimming my way through the small water part to get back up to the surface on the other side. And that's where Herbert came in. There were Aranios and Onyx everywhere. And the giant bats were pretty tough to take down, I'm not gonna lie. And they were even so tough to take down that one even managed to give me mega rabies before I could kill it. I would survive the disease, but if I got it once or twice more, then I'm a dead man. So that's when I decided, you know what, screw exploring the cave like it's supposed to be explored. I then proceeded to rappel off a very large cliff way too fast down with my Thyla to collect the artifact.
I'm gonna drop in here and take this real quick, as long as you guys don't mind. This guy's minding. These guys are minding. Oh, there's no way I don't get mega rabies again. Yeah.
I managed to get the artifact and survive getting mega rabies for a second time, but that didn't stop me from placing a sleeping bag just in case it all went south. But now it's time for me to make my grand escape. I climbed up the wall and left. Yeah, that's why I tamed the Thyla to explore caves with me. It's because I can do things like that, cheesing caves. Anyway, I emerged from the cave and it was still dark out, but that didn't stop me from getting back on my raft and sailing back home with my newly acquired artifact. But once there, I put the artifact away as well as the hides and chitin I got from killing the cave creatures, and I then got straight to work working on the industrial workshop. I crafted and finished placing down the walls, so it's now an enclosed space. And I also added in all the window shutters to make it functional. And after that, I placed a fireplace down, which I had gotten from supply drop. And then I put a few more artifact pedestals down I got from drops next to it. And I immediately displayed the artifact of the Devourer, which looks absolutely awesome in here. Anyway, the rest of the day was spent trying to make the outside of the workshop look better, as it's just kind of a stone box right now. And I added a front porch like my main house to try and make it look prettier, but honestly, I don't think this thing will ever look amazing because of its awkward shape, but I'm really gonna try. Now on to day 33. I started the day by crafting 2 canteens, so I now have a decent supply of water on the go. And after filling both canteens up, I did some quick narcoberry farming with my Bronto for more narcotics. This is because I need to start taming Rexes to breed an army to fight the Megapithecus. I'm already a third of the way through this 100 days, and I think this is the longest I've ever gone without taming boss fighting dinos. Anyway, after placing another mortar and pestle, I got the narcotics crafting. But I'm not going to use trank arrows to knock out the Rexes like last time. I want to use trank darts to speed up the process. But that doesn't speed up the taming resource gathering process, because I have to make even more long neck bullets to craft the darts. And that led me to farm a bunch of flintstone with my Ankylote and then crafting the spark powder. And the rest of the day was also spent crafting spark powder, narcotics, and gunpowder to eventually make more rifle bullets. It was a very long and boring process, but the combination of these trank darts and my ramshackle long neck, the Rexes should fall asleep in basically no time. To put it lightly, day 34 was almost like torture. I had severely miscalculated how long it would take to craft all the trank darts I wanted to. Between crafting gunpowder, narcotics, and everything in between, it was not a fun experience. And pretty much the whole day was spent on the trank dart grind. The process was definitely lengthened by me not having any spoiled meat at my base. So about halfway through the day, I did have to go out and kill a few dinos with my RG to acquire said spoiled meat. But yeah, not a fun experience. 2 out of 10, don't recommend. But day 35, I finally got out of my base because I now have everything I need to successfully tame a Rex. But now the problem is actually finding a Rex worth taming. So I set out with Bones once again to begin the search even before the sun came up. But I first got distracted by a red drop coming down with a ring on the nearby snow mountain. But honestly, it didn't really have too much of value in it. I really miss getting good saddles from drops, man. Why can't I get more of those? Anyway, I dropped the stuff back off on my base before actually beginning the search for a decent level Rex this time. And I first searched Carno Island, eventually moving towards the black sand beaches and eventually making my way down towards the green obelisk. There were a few Rexes, but honestly not too many, and none worth taming sadly. And the rest of the day was actually spent doing more of the same. I was flying all over the island, looting drops, and occasionally flying back to my base to deposit the loot so I didn't get too heavy. And nothing worth taming was found, but with me flying all over the place, a high level is bound to spawn somewhere, sometime. Day 36 and I found a high level, but it wasn't a Rex. I actually found a level 140 Theory, and at the time I couldn't remember if the Theory I tamed back in my base was a male or a female. So I put a waypoint on the map to come back to it if I needed to tame it. But spoiler alert, future me knows that I tamed a male, so I won't be coming back to tame this guy. Anyway, later on I was still flying around when I looted a yellow drop with a ring that had an Ascended fabricated pistol.
Ooh, I'm locked and loaded. Watch out.
I'm probably actually never going to use this gun, but it's kind of funny I have a super overpowered one now. But later on I returned back to my base and deposited more loot, and I did actually end up testing out my fabricated pistol. However, the rest of day 36 wasn't nearly as fun. Yeah, you guessed it. I spent the rest of the day flying around looking for a Rex to tame. I really don't like having to do basically nothing all day, but I have to find some Rexes to tame or I'm not going to be able to advance. But that all changed on day 37 when I was finally blessed with a good Rex.
Oh.
I guess my patience was rewarded. I'm sorry if I ever doubted you, Ark Gods. Anyway, I quickly set up my trap and it took me a little bit to eventually get it secured on the trap.
Well, I hope it's stuck. What? What?
But eventually, I succeeded. And once the Rex was finally knocked unconscious, I realized once again that I don't have a good way to get it back home. But luckily, it wasn't actually too far from my base, being at the base of the northeastern Metal Mountain. But I decided to fly back to my base anyways, because I wanted to ride my Theory out to the Rex, to farm some prime meat and to safely guide it home. But before I did that, I had to place a sign down at the entrance to my base. It doesn't matter what it says, okay? I got it from a drop and I just wanted to place it. Anyway, I finally got on my Theory and ran out towards the tame site. But before I got there, I killed a Rex and the Diplo, which only gave me a combined 5 prime meat, which is not going to be enough to tame it. So I then proceeded to take down a herd of Brontos, and that gave me more than enough prime meat to be able to tame the Rex. And the Rex actually tamed right before the end of the day, and here are the stats. I'm not a pro with Rex stats or anything, but I think this Rex is pretty mid. The melee might be alright, but I'm pretty sure the health is like really low. So hopefully the male I tame later on will have better health to balance my future army out. But finally, I picked up my trap for future use, and I led the Rex back home into the night. Day 38, and now that I have a tamed Rex, I feel like I can take a step back and chill out. So I decided I'm gonna try and fix up my workshop even more now. I wanted to try and add a wooden roof, somehow working around the dinosaur gate that sticks up higher than the rest of the build. So anyways, I first started by farming a bunch of wood with my Theory and RG. And after that, I need more thatch. And I was beginning to grow tired of having to mass farm thatch by using a pickaxe on the trees. So I decided to take out my Bronto and try to see how it was at farming thatch. And to be honest, it was just alright, I guess. I bet hitting the trees with my pickaxe is probably more effective, but it's much easier to farm with a Bronto. And the rest of the day was spent adding the roof onto my workshop. And it looked a lot like this. Day 39 was pretty much the same as building takes a while. All this work for the workshop to still not even look that good. Anyway, about halfway through the day, I noticed that all of my tames somehow had ended up in this giant ditch right next to my base. And to this day, I still don't know how they got there. Some of them were on passive, so they couldn't have tried to be attacking something down there. Anyway, I got them back up to the safety of my base and spent the rest of the day finishing the build. However, day 40, I realized I probably need to jump back on the taming train to keep progressing. And I looked for what I needed to craft a chemistry bench to speed up narcotic production, but it was a little out of my budget for right now. So I got back to farming the potent drugs the good old way by using my Bronto to harvest the berries and craft them in mortar and pestles. And that's what I spent about half the day doing. That is until I had just over 100 trank darts, which should be enough to successfully tame a high level Rex. And I then set out in the wild to find me that high level Rex. Later. I haven't found anything yet, okay? But what I have found is this drop that wasn't that visible for some reason.
This drop's a tweaker. Dude, I hear it, but it's... Oh, it's right. Drops. Oh my god! Good BT saddle. Bones, bro. You're getting an upgrade.
Yeah, safe to say I was more than happy to get that glitchy drop and loot it. And I'd also like to say graphical glitches, especially lighting glitches, were happening all the time now. So if the game ever looks weird, suck it up, I don't know what to tell you. But actually, I'm sorry, a relog usually fixes it, but after doing so many times in and out the count, I just kind of let it slide. But anyways, the rest of the day was spent looking for a
change of plans. I need to tame that.
Yeah, so I really want to tame that Quetzal, because if I tame that and slap a platform saddle on the back of it, that'll solve the rest of my dino transportation needs. So having this new goal in mind, towards the end of the day, I flew back home to drop off my loot and organized on how to tame this thing. And I also decided now is a good time to craft a fridge, which is what I did, and I transferred all my spoilables into it. And to finally conclude the day, I opened a yellow drop with a ring and got a ton more stone structures. It's time to tame this Quetzal in the morning of day 41, but I first have to finish compiling all that I need to tame the giant bird. And that first started with me crafting more parachutes, since I plan to grapple on the back of my Pteranodon and whistle around it to tame it. And for anyone who's never tamed a Quetzal before, it's really not that easy. You see, these guys don't land, like, ever. So as I said, my plan is to grapple to the back of my bird and whistle it around while I try and shoot the Quetzal with trank darts. Cause sadly, you can't grapple to the Quetzal and shoot it directly. As soon as you shoot it, the grapple detaches and you go flying towards the ground. But I made the parachutes just in case anything goes south, because I don't want to hit the ground at Mach 10. And I also grabbed some rare flowers that I had collected over time before flying over to loot a red drop next to my base. And the drop had some polymer, electronics, and a decent Uranus saddle inside of it, which was nice. But I was bringing the rare flowers because on Ark Survival Evolved, at least, if you ate these, dinos would get very mad at you, even herbivores. Thus, you're able to lead them into a trap much easier while they try and kill you. But I'm not sure if it'll work on a giant creature like a Quetzal. But anyway, I deposited the loot I got from the drop back in my base, and then I did a 180 and began flying out towards the Quetzal. It was on the complete other side of the map. Past the green obelisk, so there was a decent flight time. But once I finally made it out to the Quetzal's location, dawn had broken and I was ready to do this. But I first wanted to try and grappling the Quetzal itself just in case anything had changed from Ark Survival Evolved. But as I said earlier, it didn't work and I got sent flying. But luckily I had my parachute deployed. So I then shot a grappling hook onto my PT and began the long process of whistling the bird at the location in the sky near the Quetzal and then trying to land a trank dart on the Quetzal. And I did this until about halfway through day 41, when I just put in over 50 trank darts into the bird. And that's when I decided to whip out my magnifying glass to show me how much torpidity it has. And after a few minutes of me trying to line up the perfect flight path to get a read on the Quetzal, I finally saw it.
What?
It was only about a third of the way to being knocked unconscious. So to keep it short, I can't tame it right now. I need to go back to my base and farm even more trank darts. So that's exactly what I did. And I flew back to my base, leaving the Quetzal, who was now flying on the outskirts of the redwoods. And I spent the rest of the day on the grind crafting more trank darts. I wanted around 150, since I could average about 50 darts will get a third of its torpidity as long as I hit all my shots. And it took a little while, but I had 154 darts before the sun came up on day 42. And I also had some trank arrows and a spare crossbow just in case the darts weren't enough. So I left my base once again and flew out towards the redwoods to find the Quetzal just where I left it. But by the time I'd taken to craft all the trank darts, it had lost literally all of its torpidity. And it took around 20 minutes in real life for me to make the dart, so it makes sense it's back to square one, but it was a real bummer. But now I know I can knock out the Quetzal using the first method, but it was very time consuming and honestly I didn't feel like it. Instead, I decided to spend a little bit more time looking for a more effective way to tame it.
I'm gonna do some more research.
So once again, I flew back to my base, watching YouTube videos on how to tame the Quetzals on the way home. And I just like to say, some of these videos were almost 8 years old, back from Ark Survival Evolved. So it seems this Quetzal taming problem has been going on for a long time. However, I didn't find any methods to tame it besides the first one, where I believed I could solo tame the Quetzal. So I decided to create my own method. I mean, it's definitely been done before, but I don't know if it'll work. I decided to make a giant thatch trap with a behemoth gate on one side I have laying around from looting drops. And I would then lure the Quetzal inside with the rare flowers I had, making it angry at me. You see, Quetzals don't fight back, so there isn't any reason for me to use stronger structures than thatch. And I had pretty much all the resources required to craft the trap, since thatch is pretty cheap, that is. But I did have to farm some fiber, however, but it was made super easy because I have my theory. Anyways, I decided on a 4x4 trap with 4 walls high, so it should be more than big enough to fit a Quetzal inside. Oh, and also I crafted and placed a war map that I placed above the door in the workshop. That piece of information isn't really that important, but it just looks nice and I thought you should see it. But anyway, I now have everything I need to tame the Quetzal. Hopefully. So I set out back towards the redwoods on my RG this time because structures are pretty heavy. But you can also see and hear the exact moment where my dog barks and scares the crap out of me on the flight out. I never saw what my dog was barking at, but I decided to eat him for scaring me. For legal reasons, that was a joke, and no dogs were harmed in the making of this video. Anyway, I finally made my way out to the redwoods, and I decided to set up the trap on the redwood mountain. And now that the trap was fully constructed on day 43, it's finally time to tame this Quetzal. So I had the gate wide open and I took off to the nearby bird. And once I was basically right under it, I began downing rare flowers to get it angry at me. But it didn't exactly work. I guess the Quetzal couldn't care less about the rare flowers I was now chowing down on. Yeah, I probably should have tested if they get angry to rare flowers before I made this giant trap. So back to plan A, I guess. I then flew back to my base once again and immediately switched to my PT as soon as I arrived. And once again, I finally made it back to the redwoods. And I first tried biting the Quetzal and trying to angle it to fly into the trap on its own, but its AI was either too smart or too stupid for that. So after a few minutes of trying, I just returned to the old faithful. And yeah, I think you can see where this is going.
What's out?
So I had finally knocked the Quetzal unconscious on day 44, but it landed over a pretty dangerous part of the map, being right around where I lost my raptor Greer over 30 days ago. But the more immediate issue was the Quetzal was asleep and I didn't have any spare narcotics to keep it asleep, and these guys lose torpor pretty fast as we've seen. So I flew back to my base as fast as I could and tried to farm as many of the resources needed to craft narcotics as fast as possible. You see, the narco berries weren't the hard part, it was the spoiled meat, as I had none of it and it would take about 10 minutes for me to spoil raw meat. And once I had a decent amount, I picked up the mortar and pestles at my base to bring them back to the Quetzal location to craft narcotics there, and I couldn't waste any time waiting for them to craft back at my base. So Quetzal was losing hundreds of torpor every minute, and once I landed back at the tame site, I placed a stone foundation and then placed in mortar and pestles on top of them. And I got a few narcotics crafting before going to kill a few more smaller creatures to spoil even more meat, and I then took down an RG and a Paracer for more prime meat to tame the Quetzal. This would be enough to tame it, but it's still gonna take some time. But now that I had the Quetzal's torpidity and taming food under control, I decided to farm up and place some spike walls around it to protect it. I was really concerned about its safety. I've spent like 4 days trying to tame this. If this thing gets eaten right before I'm about to tame it, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But luckily, a few minutes later after I placed down the spike walls, the Quetzal tamed, and the amount of relief that brought me was immeasurable. So anyway, I whistled the new bird to follow me back home. And once there, I got myself organized and before long set off again. This is because I am level 96. One level before the level required to unlock the Quetzal platform saddle, which is obviously the one I want instead of the other normal saddle so I can transport my big dinos. So I spent the rest of the day flying around looking for explore notes to power level my character, and I found one at the very end of the day. Day 45, I made the mistake of turning clouds back on right when I was under the green obelisk. Anyway, I turned the clouds back off so I could actually see. But more importantly, I was hunting a Spino. You see those two little purple arrows in the bottom right of my screen? Yeah, the combination of those giving me 4 times experience and me killing this level 10 Spino right here, that got me up to level 97 right away. And that led me to unlock the platform saddle and then fly home immediately. And once there, I instantly crafted the Quetzal's platform saddle. Luckily, I had enough resources to actually craft it because it requires 220 silica pearls. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do when I need to craft more structures that require pearls because I have no aquatic creatures to retrieve them. Anyway, that's a future problem for future me. So for now, I'm gonna saddle up my Quetzal and do some farming with it. And that's exactly what I did. I saddled up the big bird and promptly picked up my Dodic to farm some stone. The Quetzal was pretty slow, but the sheer amount of stamina and weight it had made up for that. Anyway, after farming a little bit of stone just to test it out, I realized I should probably power level this thing a little bit. So I dropped off my Doid and then took off on my Quetzal alone to find some explorer notes. And I spent the whole rest of the day flying around and only getting 2 explorer notes. This was because a combination of the Quetzal being really slow and me having a brain fart and forgetting where all the explorer notes on the map are. But even just getting those 2 notes, my Quetzal got some decent levels. By the time I returned to my base in the morning of day 46, both the explorer notes and experience buff had ran out. Mostly because the Quetzal moved slower than molasses. Anyway, when I returned to my base, I got myself organized and then crafted a few more wooden quarter ceilings, and I then placed them on opposite sides of the fireplace. There are 10 artifacts in total I'm gonna have to collect, so it makes sense to have 10 artifact pedestals as I only have 6 right now. And this is the best place I could find to place the 4 I still needed to place. But I actually don't have the artifact pedestals just yet, but I'll place them in the near future if I remember. Anyway, after that, I once again noticed a really glitchy yellow drop. These light glitches are starting to get out of hand, but I'm sure they'll all get patched out over time. Wildcard is actually doing a really good job of working to fix bugs and glitches quickly while I'm recording this. Anyway, the yellow drop actually had a ring, but the best thing in it was these 2 stone foundations I took. Moving on, I still need to tame a high level male Rex, because as I'm sure you can all remember, instead of doing that, I spent 4 days taming a Quetzal. Anyway, I now decided this is the time I'm actually gonna tame the male Rex, at least when I find it. I haven't found one yet. So anyways, I grabbed 4 gates from my structure storage box as well as a spare crossbow and a ton of trank arrows. I have just under 50 darts left over from the Quetzal tame, and honestly, I can't bring myself to farm any more darts, so these arrows are gonna have to do. But just like that, I was off looking for a high level male Rex. Not before I looted this red drop in the redwoods, however. And if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm somewhat of a loot goblin. But the drop actually had a bunch of soups and broth that I don't mind, so it wasn't horrible. And later on, I still haven't found any Rexes worth taming. But I did find another red drop on the Carno Island. island, and it had some polymer, electronics, and a freedom stick. And it looks like they redesigned the model for the freedom stick, and honestly, it looks pretty good. Anyway, day 47, and I'm still on the hunt for a good Rex. I was finding Rexes once again, but not having any luck finding high levels.
Dude, why can't that Rex be a good level? It's so cool looking.
Also, I don't know why some dinos have crazy colors. I'm pretty sure there isn't an active event, but honestly, I don't know for sure. But luckily, my bad luck wouldn't last for that long because I found a level 145 male down by the green obelisk.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So I then set up my gate trap as you do and managed to get the Rex inside pretty easily this time. But I did nearly mess up actually trapping the Rex inside with the 4th gate placement, but somehow it can't fit out of there. I don't know, I'm not gonna complain, I'll take what I can get. Anyway, after clearing out some nearby pests, I put the Rex to sleep. And once the Rex was out cold, I made my way over to a nearby level 15 Alpha Carno. And I managed to take it down with relative ease, I guess. But it gave me more prime meat than I needed to tame the Rex, and also gave me some even better metal tools than I already had. And now that the Rex was slowly taming, I flew back to my base to get my Quetzal so I can fly the Rex back home. But to make dino transportation even easier, I decided to expand on its platform. I added 6 stone foundations, then 6 stone ceilings with a ramp making it easier to get up and down. And I also want to say I love what they did with the building mechanics on the back of the saddle platform. The structures are no longer janky to build with, and they snap together super smoothly. But that doesn't mean that placing them is super smooth.
You joking? Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah, some pretty mundane tasks will still crash you every once in a while. So make sure to keep pressing that save button, folks. You'll be thanking me later. Anyway, after I finished building the platform and I felt like I wasn't gonna crash anymore, I took off for the Rex. And it took me a while to get down to my now tame Rex because I was on the back of a slow Quetzal. But once there, I decided to check out his stats.
Oh my god, that melee is atrocious. But it's got decent health.
So yeah, that melee was absolutely terrible, but the health was alright. So once I breed out the better melee and health, my boss army should be alright, especially with some power leveling by murdering more baby Rexes. Anyway, I loaded up the Rex onto the platform and spent the rest of the day flying home, but a pretty significant event actually happened between here and there. When I had almost made it back to my base, I realized that my Rex had gotten knocked off by a tree. No big deal, I'll just go back down and load it back onto the platform once again. But when I found the Rex, it was fighting a level 140 female Theory, and I wanted to tame the Theory since it's the exact type I needed to make a Theory boss line. So I scooped up the now near dead Theory as it was fighting my Rex, and I dropped it into the hidden lake in hopes that it wouldn't die before I came back to tame it. And I don't know what it was, but Ark definitely had it out for me that day since a Bronto literally tried to get onto my Quetzal platform and I couldn't get my Rex on. It was just a whole big ordeal, and honestly it was way too stressful. But I finally had my Rex safely secured at my base on day 48, and I started the day by crafting a saddle so I'll be able to move them around my base freely, which is exactly what I did. I named the newly tamed Rex its stats and I lined them up next to my base. And after that I flew back over to the hidden lake to make sure the Theory was alright, but I couldn't find it. I seriously spent over 15 minutes searching around in the nearly enclosed lake looking for this dude, and I had started to think that maybe it had died because it was pretty low on health when I dropped it in there. But it's not until I began flying back to my base in defeat as to where I spotted it.
Oh my god, it tried following me. That AI is crazy, dude.
So yeah, it turns out the Theory probably stayed aggroed on me for a while, and it managed to make its way out of the lake, through the entrance, and out through the forest close to my base before it finally chilled out. That's some pretty impressive tracking skills if you ask me. Anyway, I decided that I wanted to tame the Theory using Trank Darts since it was already pretty low on health, and I didn't want to kill it by accident. And I also decided I wanted a chemistry bench to make narcotic farming easier, but I'm gonna need quite a few silica pearls to craft the electronics required to craft the chemistry bench. So I took off on my bird to fly to the complete other side of the map where the snow meets the jungle on the west side of the island. There used to be some silica pearls in the shallow water there you could collect, but there wasn't this time, which honestly kinda sucks that they took them out. I really don't know how I'm gonna get any silica pearls required now. So I made it back home, and I think I now have a solution, my fellas. It's time that I finally venture underwater. I'm gonna tame an ichthy and then use it to loot all the pearl caves because they have pearls inside them, hopefully. With Wildcard taking the pearls away from that one spot I was just at, I wouldn't be surprised if they took some of the pearls from the pearl caves away. So anyway, I got some raw meat and some scuba, which I've gathered from drops over time, and set sail on my raft. I decided to use my raft to look into the water and use Orbicam to spot the ichthyes. It honestly makes searching the shallow oceans for tames pretty easy. Didn't take long for me into day 49 to find a level 75, which I'm gonna take. It's obviously not a great level, but these ichthyes don't need to be. They just need to get me from point A to B underwater, and they aren't built for fighting like at all, so health or melee really doesn't matter. So after a few more minutes and a few more times feeding, the ichthy was mine, and I had it whistle to follow me back to my base as I sailed above the water on my raft. But as soon as I beached on the coast next to my base, they came for my ichthy, the piranhas. I tried getting my ichthy away from the beach, but I wasn't able to in time.
Oh, are you kidding, dude? I hate piranhas.
Hey, but at least I got 3 artifact pedestals I needed from a blue drop when I was walking on my way back to base. I guess that kinda makes up for it. Nah, it doesn't make up for it all. What am I saying? Anyway, after taking a few minutes to think about how much I dislike this franchise sometimes, I decided to get myself together and try again. So just like last time, I hopped on my raft and began looking for another ichthy. But later on, while I was in the water looking for one, this happened.
Oh, are you joking, man?
But luckily, since I'm the best Ark Survival Ascended player of all time, I managed to sail the raft closer to the shore before the whale could break my raft. And later on, I attained myself a level 85 ichthy, and I also had a saddle for it this time so it didn't get deleted as soon as I tamed it again. And I left my raft in the middle of the ocean and took off on my dolphin. And I didn't waste any time. I didn't even go back to my base. I dove deep down to the bottom of the ocean to raid my first small pearl cave, and I made a discovery there.
These are silica. They look like rocks. That's probably why I didn't see any.
So turns out silica pearls don't shine anymore. They kind of just look like rocks, but it's good I'm finally getting some at least. But there actually wasn't many pearls in this cave. I only got 60 and I need over 700. But at least there's like another 9 pearl caves on the map and this is only a small one. So anyways, I kept making my way through the ocean, carefully avoiding deadly sea creatures to try and find the next pearl cave I can loot. That is until I crashed. I mean, it didn't set me back much, so I just kept going.
Whoa! Dude, I did not even see that.
Yeah, that could have been life-ending. A lot was added to the oceans in terms of foliage and seaweed, so the ocean is no longer like an underwater desert. So you now actually have to be careful and look where you're going, or Tuso might come out of nowhere. Anyway, I eventually found myself a medium pearl cave, but it didn't have any pearls in it for some reason. Oh well, maybe that one's just one exception, so I kept going. Day 50 and I finally found another pearl cave.
This is the most pro cave looking pearl cave I've ever pearl caved before. Yeah, I knew it.
But once again, there was no pearls inside this cave. I mean, come on, dude. What's up with this? How am I supposed to get any silica pearls? So anyway, I left the cave pretty annoyed because I had just gotten scammed by a hollow rock. So I went up to the surface to take out my anchor and to get some raw meat to feed my ichthy. And after that, I dipped back below the surface and decided to take a peek at some nearby anglerfish since they were good at farming pearls. But as I said earlier, be aware of your surroundings at all times in the ocean.
Whoa! No! Please!
Yeah, so my ichthy got. But using my insane skills and the deadly amount of adrenaline that was pumping through my veins, I managed to pull out my grapples and use them to rapidly rappel up and out of the ocean to make my escape. But I now have the problem of being stuck on the other side of the map with no tame to get home. But with some more quick thinking, I placed a sleeping bag down and used it to fast travel to my base and grab a bird and fly back over to retrieve my stuff. And I also made sure to place a waypoint on the map to make sure I didn't lose my body. So I grabbed bones as soon as I spawned in back to my base from the bunk beds and took off. And it all went smoothly. It just took a little while since I had to go back and forth across the map. Anyway, I've now decided I'm just gonna tame the theory with trank arrows because it's probably nearly healed by now. And I decided to reduce, reuse, and recycle once again by flying back out to the redwoods and picking up the trap I used to tame the thyla. And I then proceeded to fly back to my base and reconstruct it right outside of my walls. And after that, I hopped on the back of my Quetzal and flew over to the theory, where I then picked it up and dropped it inside the trap first try because I make buckets like that. But before knocking it out, I farmed some raw meat to cook because I was starting to run low on food actually. And once again, I love this new industrial grill. Anyway, after that, I spent the rest of the day putting trank arrows into the theory. But now I have to keep the theory asleep. And that started with me grabbing my RG in the morning of day 51 to farm some spoiled meat. But the Ark gods decided to take a little labor off my shoulders by giving me some narcotics and a blue drop right next to my base. But I still had to kill a bunch of dinos and split the meat I got to make even more narcotics. Because as I said when I was taming my first theory, these guys absolutely shred through narcotics with a crackhead level of tolerance. Anyways, after that I opened a purple drop and got some more prime meat jerky and made sure the theory wasn't gonna wake up by force feeding it some more narcotics. And I then collected a bunch more narco berries and got them crafting in my mortar and pestles. I really wish I had a chemistry bench about now, but I don't know if I can bring myself to go back in the ocean for a little while. Anyways, later on I finally bred my Rexes to get my first fertilized Rex egg, and I need to get my boss line going sooner rather than later. And after that I finally put my remaining crops into the theory's inventory so it could start taming, but it's still gonna be a while before it finishes. And I spent that time farming more narcotics and mostly looting a few drops, but I didn't get anything great. But my theory did finally tame at the end of the day, but I can't even lie, it came out with pretty bad stats. But at least I now have a breeding pair of theories. I just have to hope that their babies have leveled enough stats to take down an alpha dragon. And I'll probably bring a few of them into the Ascension Cave as well, so they need to be pretty strong. Anyway, I bred my theories to get a fertilized egg, but I'm still gonna need to place the hatch and raise my boss dinos. So I think I'm just gonna build a small hatching platform in the middle of my compound. It doesn't need to be fancy at all, they just need to be efficient. So I first experimented with placing a foundation and a ceiling just to see how the snapping would work, and I liked what I saw. So I then hopped on the back of Protein Shake and grabbed my Doed to do some quick and easy stone farming, with my Doed auto farming all the rocks. And after that, I quickly farmed some more thatch by hand once again because I still don't have an awesome way to farm it rather than my pickaxe. And I also grabbed a nearby blue drop, but all it had was some cooked meat jerky inside. And after that, I crafted a few stone structures, and I then placed them down where I had them earlier. And I eventually had a 4x4 stone ceiling platform being held up by one pillar. But I also wanted to add some stairs coming off the edges to make it more fluent and easier to access. So I started with farming some fiber with my sickle before remembering that I have a theory that can do this job way more efficiently. And I also used a theory to farm wood needed for the stairs. And just like that, I have a platform. Isn't it great? But I need to make this into more of a hatching platform, so I wanted to place some air conditioners under it just to make it just that. But the platform wasn't close enough to my workshop to be fully powered by the generator inside. And I could see this by showing the generator's range, and it only covered about a third of my platform. So that led me to go inside the workshop and move the generator from the back corner closer to the door. And just that small move allowed for almost the whole platform to be in the range of power. So after that, I grabbed 2 air conditioners I got from a drop earlier on, and I placed them under the platform. And it looks like these air conditioners were also changed to be slimmer, and I think they honestly do a better job at incubating eggs now, but I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me on that. But even just 2 of them managed to incubate both a Rex and a Theory egg, so my theory is looking pretty promising right now. Anyways, moving on, I farmed some more berries with my Bronto to feed the new baby Theory I was bringing into this world. But once the baby actually did hatch, it had less than pleasing stats.
Oh, should I have better stats?
I need my Theories to be born with 7.6k health and over 400 melee, so there was no room for weak stats in my army if I'm taking on the Alpha Dragon with them. Anyway, the Rex egg hatched, but it also didn't have stats worthy of starting my boss army. But before the very end of the day, I hatched another Theory egg, which I decided to raise because I had the good melee. But future me knows that this was completely useless because this baby was female, and my other Theory that had the good health was female. So basically, this theory is useless, but it just hasn't dawned on me yet. I was still raising the baby going into day 53, but while I was waiting to imprint the baby, I crafted up a cooking pot and placed it inside my workshop. I did this because I might need some kibbles to imprint the baby. Normally, if the baby wanted kibble, I would just put it in a cryopod, then throw it back out because that resets what it wants for imprinting. But cryopods aren't in Ark Survival Ascended yet, so basically, if the baby wants kibble or something I can't get quickly like cooked prime fish meat or something, I have 2 choices. I can either let it live and just have a trash imprinted dino, or I can kill it. And when I'm in the full swing of raising a boss army later, I'm gonna be putting down multiple babies. Anyway, I realize I just can't craft any of this kibble right now because I don't have any crops. So I'm just gonna hope and pray that it just wants a cuddle or walk or something. And I actually lucked out for the first imprint because the baby wanted a walk. But theories take 2 imprints to get to 100% imprint on my rates. So I once again have to hope that it doesn't want anything outrageous. But luckily, all it wanted was an MR berry, which was quite easy to get, and it now has 100% full imprint, and it was now also fully grown. But I decided to try and hatch another Rex egg in hopes that it would have the stats I needed. Yeah, as you can probably tell, it didn't have the good stats. Anyway, after that, I decided to hop on the back of my Thyla to farm some more raw meat with it to keep my dinos at my base well fed. You see, this dude may be small, but he can really pack a punch, being able to easily take down some allos. Anyway, after that, I saw a yellow drop coming down in the distance in the snow, but it didn't have anything of value. You see, I'm still in need of a Rex saddle blueprint, a Theory saddle blueprint, a Megatherium saddle blueprint, and I'd like a decent pump shotgun to defend myself. So looting these yellow drops as well as purple and red drops is going to be key in trying to get those items. So that led to me also looting a red drop later on, but it had this random assortment of loot I wasn't exactly thrilled with. Anyway, to finish off the day, I hatched 1 more Rex egg.
Ooh. Please. Yes. 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 Yes.
And yeah, it actually had both the good health and melee, making it a perfect male for breeding. The Rex baby wanted some primate jerky on day 54, which I luckily had from looting so many drops. And its stats after imprint were looking pretty impressive to me.
Ooh, those stats are looking pretty tough, I'm not gonna lie. Megapithecus doesn't stand a chance.
But after that, tragedy struck.
What? No shot. I left it down there because I didn't think anything would attack it, but getting killed by a Pego is sad.
Anyway, I have another Bronto, so I retrieved the dead one's saddle and returned to my base. And after that, I soon hatched another Rex egg that popped out to actually have 2 twins, both being perfect boss fighting males. But I now need a perfect female so I can have a perfect breeding pair. But moving on, I then saw a red drop coming down on the distance on Carno Island, but once again, it didn't have anything of value. And the rest of the day was kind of like a random hodgepodge of events. I did a meat run with one of my Rexes, hatched a perfect female Rex, so I now have a perfect breeding pair, and I also discovered emotes. What? Day 55 was primarily spent raising baby Rexes to grow my boss fighting army, but I now had to go on a few side quests to keep fueling this goal. And that started with me flying over to the metal mountain about halfway through the day with my PT and just farming a little bit of metal and bringing it back to my base. And I did this to craft a feeding trough because for some reason they still require raw metal to craft. And I then spent some more time raising my babies and imprinting them before taking one of my Rexes on my raft and sailing over to the Carno Island. This was because I needed to actually fill my feeding trough so my dinos could eat. But I never actually had an easy time getting the raw meat I needed because my harvesting rates are actually pretty low. And that would lead to my dino eating most of the meat before I could get it back to my base because they would take damage while acquiring the meat. But it was honestly never a huge issue. So anyways, I even mentioned killing Alpha Carno on Carno Island before heading back to my base at the end of the day. Day 56 started with some good old-fashioned killing with one of my new boss Rexes. I was doing this partially for levels, but more for getting raw meat. I plan to power level all my dinos by mass murdering baby Rexes in the future, so I don't really need to worry about wandering around and killing stuff for levels. But later on, I have now accumulated over 6 fertilizer X eggs, and they all have the guaranteed good stats, so of course I started incubating them all at once. And also, I still only have a few air conditioners under this one corner of the platform. I'm simply too poor to craft more of these, and the few in the corner give me enough space to hatch already, so I don't really see a need to place more right now. So while those are incubating for a few minutes, I went back out to get even more raw meat to feed the babies, and when I returned there were a ton of baby Rexes, and I spent the rest of the day raising them, making sure that they could get to 100% imprint so they could be as powerful as possible for the boss. The babies were all grown up on day 57, and they took up a lot of space now, so I began lining them up on opposite sides of my base along the cliff edges, and on one side they were used for breeding and mass producing eggs for hatching and eventually murdering for baby levels, and on the other sides were the ones I would only need for the boss. And after that I began incubating around 7 more fertilized Rex eggs. I'm not totally sure how many there actually was again, but there was a lot, and I was basically raising my whole boss fighting army in just 2 batches of babies, so about half of the day alone was spent raising them to make sure they were all alright and got their imprints. But then there was one that wanted regular kibble to imprint, and I had to put it down because he was asking for way too much of me. But anyways, after that I spent the rest of the day farming even more raw meat. I now had about 20 Rexes that were absolutely shredding through whatever I put in the trough, so it's now a constant battle to keep them fed. Alright, now day 58 I have some big explaining to do. If you've seen my 100 days in Pugnacia video back on Ark Survival Evolved, this will make a lot more sense. Basically, every once in a while I'll have a power outage in my room, and thus my PC gets shut off, making my game crash weird and the recording not saving. But anyways, that pretty much happened. So when the recording finally picked back up, I'm over the ocean on my raft midway through taming an ichthy. But the problem was I wasn't on my character anymore. I mean, I guess I still was, but there's just the body of me. So I had to create a whole new character because if you crash in a certain way, sometimes your character just gets deleted, which is honestly a really good feature I think they should keep in the game. I'm just playing. I hate this feature so much. This has happened to me multiple times back on Ark Survival Evolved, so it sucks they really haven't taken this bug out yet. Anyway, I had to loot my old body and power level my character through admin commands to get it back to high level. I really hate when I have to do stuff like this, but when life gives you lemons, you just gotta cheat or something. I don't really know. But anyways, it looks like I was taming a level 140 male ichthy to go underwater again. I was mostly taming this because I'm still lacking in the silica pearls department, and I had a little trouble taming this dude because of some megalodons that were nearby, and I also crashed a few more times, which really grinded my gears. I was honestly ready to fight somebody. Anyone who experienced these crashes a lot too will have sympathy for me. Anyway, I did finally manage to tame it, and I threw the saddle for it I had on it, and I pieced back out to my base, leaving my raft behind back on Carno Island, and there was no way I'm gonna lose this ichthy. And with that goal of keeping the ichthy alive this time, I swam all the way around the cliffs on my base and parked it on the little bay that was there, and I also made sure to kill all the piranhas that were there, but that was not good enough for me. I also wanted to build a water dino pen. Really, I just wanted to place some gates and spikes down to protect it from the average threat. And I actually had some stone dino gates in my base from looting drops, so I had a good start to building the dino pen by the end of the day. But that was still not good enough for me. I won't stop until I know my ichthy is going to be safe. So I took my Theory and RG out to the nearby forest in the morning of day 59 and farmed a bunch of wood. And I then returned back to my base to craft 2 more stone dino gates as well as a bunch of spike walls to protect my ichthy from land threats. And I then surrounded my fish with the structures, and it should be safe now. I'm gonna be really mad if something manages to kill it in there. But anyways, now that my ichthy is finally safe, I crashed. Yeah, I know. Pretty anticlimactic. But I'm really starting to hate these crashes, man. Anyways, when I got back into the game, I farmed some stone with my Dodic and then be crafting a rather large stone trap. This is because I want to tame an anglerfish. Since I haven't had any luck scavenging pearls, I decided I might as well bite the bullet and tame an angler. Anglers are really good at farming pearls. Like, I bet I can go on 1 pearl run and not need to farm pearls for the rest of this playthrough. But the problem is taming an angler. They're pretty hard to tame because they spawn at the bottom of the ocean, so you have to outmaneuver everything down there, somehow get it in a trap, and then once it is, it also has a high chance of dying to your trap trank arrows when you're actually trying to tame it. You see, those who have tamed an anglerfish before know the pain. But anyways, I decided to go with a 3x2 stone trap with 2 high walls and ceilings on top and a gate out front. It was actually a pretty expensive trap. So expensive, in fact, that I had to do another stone run with my Dodic to finish crafting it all. And after that, I had to get a decent amount of trank arrows, as well as a bunch of narcotics to keep the ugly fish asleep, as they lose torpor very fast. But after that, I threw my scuba on and was diving in the cold, dark ocean in search of an angler to tame. And it actually didn't take me long to find a level 125 to tame. And it was also red, which was pretty cool. But even better, it wasn't too far of a swim away from my base. So when I need to go back and get some prime meat or later, it shouldn't be that bad. So anyway, I swam down to the ocean floor and found this giant rock that actually had a small outcropping where I felt safe enough to try and tame this thing. But the problem was I was cold, like very cold. I was freezing to death way too fast. So after putting the trap together, I swam back up to the surface to grab some fur and some broth to try and keep me warm. But it didn't work because future me knows that all I needed was to throw on some scuba pants and I would be chilling just because of their insane hypothermic installation. Day 60, I finally cracked the code and realized having scuba pants on was the key to success. I said future me alright, I never said how far into the future, like it was 5 minutes into the future. Anyway, I was now ready to tame the angler, but there was some megalodons standing between me and the angler. So I once again resurfaced and grabbed some stone arrows to put them down. Ichthyes can't really kill anything if their life depended on it, so these arrows are going to be my main protection down here. But anyway, I took care of the megalodons and had a little bit more trouble getting the angler into the trap, but eventually I did succeed. And I actually managed to get 2 in there, but I only needed 1, so the other one was sent to the afterlife along with those megalodons. But that wasn't before I crashed. Nice. But anyways, the angler was still in the trap when I logged back in, and I managed to knock it unconscious. However, I may have accidentally shot it with a trank arrow after it was already asleep on accident.
Oh.
But I just hope it didn't lower the taming effectiveness too much. But I now have to speedrun getting some prime meat to tame it. So I fed the sleeping angler some narcotics and swam back up to the surface as fast as I could. And I then used my RG to get some meat, and I also spotted a level 145 theria literally right outside my base.
What? Why are these theories showing up, dude?
I mean, I'll probably never tame him since I already have 2, but it's just kind of there, I guess. Anyway, I put the meat into the angler and it tamed. The taming effectiveness wasn't great since I shot it, but it'll have to do. But I did name the angler Old Red and swam it back up to the surface in my dino pen along with my Ichthy. And to end off the day, I took my Quetzal and picked up a theria and dropped it inside the trap right outside my base. I'll never tame it, but I just can't have a level 145 be out in the wild like that. Day 61 started with me collecting some fertilized Rex eggs. And from now on, I'm just gonna preface that basically throughout the rest of the playthrough, I'll have Rexes producing me fertilized eggs so I can use them to power level my dinos. Like, I'm gonna have full fridges of them later on. Anyways, after that I got myself organized to try and farm some silica pearls with Old Red. And I actually didn't stay in the ocean too long, mostly because I didn't find a single node of silica pearls for me to collect. So I'm gonna have to rethink my strategy. So after doing a little bit more research, I found out there was supposed to be a giant area of silica pearls all over the ocean floor and the southwest part of the map. But the problem is that's on the complete other side of the map from me, down by the red obelisk. So instead of me swimming the angler there, farming the pearls, and then swimming back, I decided I'm just gonna swim down there with my RG following me in the air above, and then I'm gonna farm the pearls and leave the angler down there and fly back to my base. I want to try and farm enough pearls where I don't need to come back down there in the future, but I still want to keep my angler alive just in case, so I'm gonna craft some gates to keep it safe. And that first started with me farming some more wood with my theria and also getting an Ascended PT saddle out of a blue drop. You see, that actually really caught me off guard. I'm not used to getting good stuff from drops anymore. Anyways, I crafted 5 stone gate frames and gates and began my journey swimming on my angler with my RG following me from the northeast part of the map down to the southwest. And it took about 15 minutes in real life to swim from here to there. I mean, it doesn't sound horrible, but it was really boring.
I traveled halfway across the world for these pearls right here. Yes. Oh!
Well, I had to keep dodging that plesio, but there was an absolute buttload of pearls down here, which I spent the rest of the day farming. Day 62 was a day for farming, you could say. I was still farming silica pearls in the morning of the day. And yeah, once again, there's an insane amount of pearls down here, but they're no longer shiny. Anyways, after that, I probably spent 10 minutes of solid farming and I crashed, but I now had this many pearls. I don't know how many there actually are, but there's a lot for sure. Anyway, I swam back to my RG and the gates I had set up prior to diving down there to farm all the pearls, and I left my angler there and began flying back to my base. Hopefully that's the last time I ever see my angler again, because I really don't want to have to farm pearls all over again. Anyway, the flight back to my base took forever because I was flying across the whole map on my RG, but it was well worth it. And when I returned, I immediately deposited my pearls into the fabricator and began crafting a bunch of electronics that I'm gonna need. Electronics also take forever to craft, and I wanted to craft a few air conditioners, but when they finally finished crafting, I realized I can't afford to spend any metal on them to actually craft them. So I got to do a metal run. Thus, I mounted Protein Shake and swooped up Metal Muncher, and I got to it. Day 63 and yup, I'm still farming metal. I want to make an industrial forge soonish, so I made sure to farm a bunch of metal on this run. I basically farmed all the nodes on both metal mountains. Anyway, I made my way back to my base and unloaded all the metal into my forges, and then I immediately set them ablaze, since I had some wood left over to get them going. But looking at what I need to craft a forge, it's not looking fun to farm. But complaining doesn't do much for me, so I might as well get to work. The first resource I'm gonna target and check off the list is oil, and I'm gonna find most of the oil out in the snow, so I threw on some fur and began flying out there on my RG. But once I finally made it out there where all the oil rocks used to spawn, they weren't there. But after looking around, it turns out they were there, but they moved, and they also changed the textures, so they now look like this. Honestly, good luck farming any resource out in the snow biome because it's all covered in snow. It actually makes resources really hard to identify. But anyways, I spent the rest of the day flying around the icebergs farming what oil I could. I wasn't getting huge amounts from each node from the combination of my low rates and farming with a pickaxe, but it's the best method I have right now. More oil farming in the morning of day 64, and in the end I farmed just over 500 oil, which honestly isn't that crazy at all, but it'll be enough to make a forge for sure. But after that, I decided to take a break from farming for the forge because I wanted to begin power leveling my Rexes. I had quite a few fertilized Rex eggs now, and I also decided to fly out and find a Lystro to tame, because you see, if you don't know, Lystros will give your dino an experience buff when you pet them, so that makes them pretty useful for things like power leveling inside my base. But it didn't take me long to find and tame one, and of course I named it Cody. Anyway, after that, I took it back to my base and spent the rest of the day power leveling my Rexes. I think I was hatching about 8 eggs per Rex to kill, and it will bring my Rex stats to around 31k HP and over 600 melee. Definitely not the strongest Rexes I've ever had in my time of playing Ark, but it should do for beating the Alpha Megapithecus. And day 65, yeah, pretty much the whole day was spent killing babies. Just doing the classic American thing, killing baby T-Rexes. Killing babies. Yep. What I did. Day 66, I finally finished power leveling my boss Rexes. And honestly, that was probably one of the most painful experiences of my existence. I was crashing a ton for no reason and it was super boring. But anyway, it's now time for me to do something way more eventful. You see, I've not been having much luck with drops, as I'm pretty sure I've stated over and over by now. You see, I want to swim into the easy underwater cave, and I then want to place beds where drops commonly spawn, so I could then periodically fast travel there, check if there's anything in the drops. And if there isn't, I can just despawn the drop and check back later. But if there is something good, I can collect it and then come back with my water mount and bring it back to my base. So I grabbed 2 metal foundations, 2 beds, and some chilies to make movement and stuff much better. And after that, I grabbed some raw meat to keep my ichthy fed and set out for the base. And I arrived towards the end of the day, but that didn't stop me from swimming into the cave. My goal was to be quick. Place a bed in the first air pocket, then secure my ichthy in the second air pocket, place the bed, and then get the artifact. And at first, it was all going to plan. I placed the foundation in the bed in the first area, then hopped back on my ichthy and kept moving. Being fast is the only way to stay alive in here. And eventually, I made my way to the ramp leading into the second air pocket. But that's when I made the mistake of dismounting my ichthy too early. Yeah, it's probably good my mic wasn't on because those eels scared the crap out of me. But I decided that won't be the end of me trying to get the artifact and set up my beds. So when I respawned back in my base, I re-geared, opting for having a bunch of grappling hooks and scuba flippers to move around in the water now. And after gathering everything I needed, I set back off for the cave on my bird. I'm getting my stuff, placing that bed, and getting that artifact. Well, your boy succeeded. If you ever had any doubt in me, make sure to comment it below so I can flame you. Anyway, I made my way out of the cave and then flew home. And when I finally made it back to my base, I placed the artifact in the pedestal, and as always, it looked awesome. But after that, I decided to refocus my efforts on crafting this industrial forge. I had pretty much everything I needed besides the polymer. But if I craft hard polymer, I'm gonna need to farm more cementing paste, so I'd like to farm some organic polymer from killing penguins in the snow. So I crafted myself some clubs since they are the best thing for farming organic polymer, and set out with my PT to the icebergs. But that was a mistake, because apparently penguin spawns were moved. I did not see a single penguin the whole time I was out there in the snow looking for them, so I had to return to my base defeated. Looks like I'm gonna have to suck it up and farm more obsidian and cementing paste to craft all the hard polymer I need. And then I'm gonna have to have 600 cementing paste left over to craft the forge. So I got 2 at the end of the day. Looting beaver dams because I'd rather seal than acquire resources for myself. I had acquired a pretty decent amount of cementing paste on day 68, but I now needed to farm the obsidian required to make the polymer. And I farmed a few other resources while I was out by the volcano, because I might as well. It's basically like killing 2 pegos with 1 stone, or something like that. Anyway, when I returned to my base, I crafted the rest of the polymer that I needed, and I eventually crafted my industrial forge. Man, I missed having one of these things. But I did have to do some remodeling to my workshop because of how big this thing was. I had to take part of the wall out as well as the roof just to make room for it. But moving on, what's the best thing to do when you have a brand new industrial forge? Or metal, of course. And that's exactly what I decided to do. I grabbed my Ankylo with my RG and began flying out towards the metal mountain again by the end of the day. Day 69, and I think you all know how farming goes. But maybe if I serenade you with some music, it'll make it better. Anyway, I didn't do much for the rest of day 69, besides farming since it takes a while. But when I did return to my base, I accidentally unloaded all the metal into the stone refining forges. I somehow completely forgot that I just spent multiple days making an industrial forge. Anyway, on day 70 started with me crafting some more parachutes just in case I need them. But more importantly, I decided today is the day where I want to get the third and final artifact I need to summon the Alpha Mega the Alpha Monkey, I don't know, I can't say it. Anyway, I need the artifact of the pack, which is in a swampy-like cave in the southern part of the map. There are a ton of bats and spiders in there, so Herbert should be perfect for the job. And I decided to fly him out there with my RGs because I didn't feel like running him out there. But when I finally did make it out there, my Thyla couldn't fit. Bruh. I swear these things could fit into the cave back on Ark Survival Evolved. That was a big waste of time. I tried checking the cave out on foot with my gear I currently had, but I saw a spider and got scared, so I just left. But once I returned back to my base later on, however, I grabbed some grapples I had left over from exploring the easy underwater cave, and I then pulled a 180 and flew back to the cave on my PT this time. But I can't even describe what happens next. Just watch.
Oh, I messed it up. Oh. They don't stop me. They don't know me. Ow. We are not making it out the hood, boys. Move. Keep it moving, bud. I got places to be. Oh.
Respawning back in my base, I had an idea on how to retrieve my gear from the cave.
Alright, hear me out. We're pulling up to this cave strapped.
So I had a fabricated pistol, some chilies, and some bad armor. I don't think this is gonna work, but I have to try. So anyway, day 71, I flew back out to the cave on my RG this time because my PT was still out at the cave. And I arrived in the early morning and I ran straight into the cave. And at first I tried being stealthy and getting on top of a tree inside the cave to shoot down the bats. But they noticed me before I could get my bearings. And once I did actually start putting bullets into them, the fabricated pistol did not do near as much damage as I thought it would.
The strap did not work.
So I just decided to screw it and run down and try and retrieve my stuff, and hopefully get back out of the cave with the few grapples that I actually had. So I managed to get my gear, but as I was making my way back out, I was knocked unconscious as I was grappling up the last wall separating me from freedom.
Oh, are you joking?
Yeah, after that, I was kinda done having to fight in this cave, so I respawned back in my base, and I decided I would take a more lethal route. Yeah, I decided if I can't shoot him or outrun him, I might as well blow him up. I had pretty much all the resources I needed to craft the launcher and 3 rockets. It just took a little bit of crafting like gunpowder and polymer. And I also only had a primitive set in flak and only a few more grapples, so if this doesn't work, I don't know what will really.
Didn't think it'd have to come to this, but it did.
Anyway, since I had both of my fastest flyers out of the cave, I had to run all the way back there on my Thyla. There was no way I'm gonna fly my quest out there. That would take forever. Anyway, after a lot of running, I made my way back into the cave and started my revenge tour. And luckily, the rockets were enough to put down oversized bats and bugs, and I got my gear that I've been trying to get for over like a half an hour now. And also, my PT was somehow in the mesh. I had to get it out, and I also crashed right after that. Just thought I should let you know. Anyway, when I got back in, I mounted my RD, whistled my PT to follow me, and scooped up my Thyla to begin the journey back home. I was back in my base by the morning of day 72, but I wasn't there for long because I decided to use my bunk beds to fast travel into the easy underwater cave. There wasn't any drops, but there were land cave creatures like bats and spiders, which definitely didn't spawn in there and back on Ark Survival Evolved. Honestly, I'm not really a huge fan of this change since they killed me pretty fast once I was in there. But anyways, I respawned back in my base and decided to get back to progressing. I was looking for what tributes I still needed to start the Alpha Megapithecus boss, and I needed Megalodon teeth and a few other things, but I decided just to get the teeth for right now. And I decided to use my Thyla for killing the Megalodons because I don't have a great underwater dino that outputs decent damage. And Thylas were actually buffed to swim better in Ark Survival Ascended, so that makes it even better to use one of these on underwater. And I also crafted a raft for some reason to hunt the megalodons. I don't really know why I crafted it. It was a waste of resources because I jumped off of it as soon as I spotted some megalodons, which I put down with ease on my Thyla. And I got more than enough megalodon teeth from killing just a few of the oversized sharks. And after that, I returned to my base and threw the teeth into my boss fight tribute box. Moving on, I need 10 Megalania toxin as well for the Alpha Megapithecus boss fight. And I knew Megalania spawned in the cave that has the artifact of the hunter in it, so that's where I went. I went on the back of my Thyla since I can use it to explore the cave. But once I finally made it out to the cave, I realized that I need tranks.
Wait. No. I need tranks.
Well, you might be asking, Grant, why do you need tranks if you need to kill the Megalanias to get their toxin? Well, if you didn't know, you can actually knock out the Megalania and take the toxin out of their inventory, wait for it to wake up, and knock it out again, and there will be 2 more toxin next time you knock it out. So basically, it's an infinite boss tribute glitch, but it's not really a glitch. So instead of me having to search for 5 Megalanias to get the 10 toxin I need, I can just find 1 Megalania and knock it out 5 times. But instead of running back to my base, I decided I would just place a sleeping bag and fast travel back to my base, make the tranks, and then fly back. And I also killed a Spino while getting the hide for the bag. I actually need 10 Spino sales for the boss fight, so it was kind of nice to multitask. Anyway, I placed the bag, and just like that, I was back in my compound. And I did have to do a little bit more farming, but I was able to craft a decent amount of darts with the resources already in my base. And once I had a sufficient amount, I mounted bones and flew back out towards the hunter cave. But when I made it there and got on my Thyla to go into the cave, I realized the Thyla couldn't fit. And to make it even better, I crashed.
I'm going to bed, dude. I just crashed.
Day 73 and I was back, and I tried every angle to fit my Thyla into the cave, but it was not working. So I had to run all the way back across the map with my PT following me. But by that time I'd make it back to my base, I had a plan. Thylas are one of the strongest cats in the game, but they're also one of the biggest, so I think you can see where I'm going with this. I want to tame a saber tooth and use it to explore the cave, get the artifact, and get the toxin I need for the boss fight. And I managed to scrape together the resources required to craft its saddle in my base since it was pretty cheap. But there now was the task of actually finding a saber worthy to tame. They spawned pretty much all over the northern half of the map, but it took me over 10 minutes just to spot my first one. But I guess my patience was rewarded because it was a level 150. Yeah, he'll be coming home with me. But it actually took me a little while to tame the cat. It only took 1 bola and a few darts to put to sleep, but I crashed multiple times while trying to do this. Alright, but future me knows why I've been crashing so much now. I was informed that if I turned frame generation off, I would stop crashing so much, and that actually did the trick. But I wouldn't learn this for a long time. But if you're still having this issue, maybe try that. Anyway, I had the saber tooth knocked out with spikes surrounding it by the end of the day, and I also had killed a stego for prime meat to tame it. But day 74, while I was trying to tame it, I realized that it only had 53% taming effectiveness, and it's still a mystery to me today when what happened to the saber. I'm fairly positive I didn't hit it when it knocked out, and nothing attacked it because it would have killed it, because nothing just takes a few bites then wanders away. I'm just gonna have to hope the saber will be strong enough to take on the cave, even with this terrible taming effectiveness. But I did manage to secure the tame, in which I named the saber Discord Kitten. Amazing name, I know, but make sure to join my Discord in the description, talk to me, and get updates on my future videos. Anyway, I saddled up the saber and ran back to my base with my PT following me in the air. And once there, I crafted a few more trank darts since I had used them to tame the saber. And after grabbing some more cooked meat to keep me fed, I got back on my saber and began the journey back to the hunter cave. I really hope I can do what I need to do this time. I'm really tired of going into caves and getting bodied or my dino not fitting in it. And I made my way into the cave about halfway through the day because the saber is a little slower than the Thyla. But luckily the saber actually fit inside the cave, so now it's time to get that toxin and then get the artifact. And I actually managed to get the artifact with relative ease, but the cave creatures were actually doing a decent amount of damage to my saber, and my saber wasn't outputting the greatest numbers of damage. So if I get swarmed, it's probably game over. Alright, let's pause right here. The way the hunter cave is set up is like a giant circle, but there's a cliff that you can't get up in the middle of it, and that's how I got down. So if I want to get out, I have to run all the way around through the cave, and I'm not going to survive running through all those dinos. So basically, to say it lightly, I'm screwed. But my only way out of here is just to send it through the rest of the cave. But I may bit off a bit more than I can chew because there was a lot of cave creatures coming for me. So many in fact that I decided to abandon Discord Kitten and grapple away. Sorry man, it's not personal, but I'm way more important than you are. But Ark was not a fan of my decision because I crashed. Ain't no way. Anyway, when I logged back in, I was actually at a point before I aggroed the whole horde. So basically, I have a do-over, and I've learned from my mistakes this time. Instead of trying to fight a bit of the horde at a time, my only chance of survival is to run and not look back. So yeah, your boy made it out. Never lose faith in me. Remember that. The first part of day 75 started with me and Discord Kitten running back to my base. I had gone through all that and I didn't even get the Megalania toxin I originally set out to get. But that's when I did a little more research and saw that Megalania spawned in the lava cave, and that's also on the south side of the island. So once again, I made the journey back out there with my RG and Thyla, hoping this goes a little bit better. But you'll never guess what happened. My Thyla did not fit into the cave. This has to be some type of joke. I don't know how I'm gonna get the artifact out of here later on when I need it, because I know my saber won't survive and I can't do it on foot. Oh well, future problems for future me. So yeah, once again, I flew back towards my base in defeat. But I didn't actually go back to my base. I went to the Carno Island because Megalania supposedly spawn in there, and I know for a fact I can get my Thyla in there. And to my delight, there was actually 2 Megalanias in there. So I spent the rest of the day and part of day 76 in the cave, knocking the Megalanias out and taking their toxin, waiting for them to wake back up, and then doing it all over again. Day 76, I emerged from the cave having the toxin I needed, and I also had a bunch of chitin and hide I got from killing cave dinos. Anyway, I returned back to my base and deposited my newly acquired resources. But now, as I said before I went to the Hunter Cave, I also need Spino sails, 8 to be exact. So the rest of the day was spent flying up and down the island's rivers hunting Spinos for their sails. I need them way more than they do. I had the 8 sails I needed by the morning of day 77. So now I think I have everything I need to successfully start the Alpha Megapithecus fight. But I now have 2 more problems. One, I need to make all my Rex's saddles and then transport them up to the Blue Obelisk. Yeah, the saddles are definitely going to be the easy part. I had pretty much all I needed to craft the saddles except some fiber, which I easily farmed with my Theory. And yes, I am crafting primitive saddles because I haven't found a blueprint for them. But with my past experience of fighting the Alpha Monkey back on Ark Survival Evolved, I should be able to take it down with relative ease even with these bad saddles. So anyway, I crafted all the saddles and then put them on my Rexes. But before I transport my Rexes to the obelisk, I want to craft an industrial cooker. I want to craft some medical brews because the Megapithecus arena is really cold, and I'm worried my fur alone is not enough to keep me from freezing to death before the monkey dies. But looking at what I need to craft the cooker, it's not looking fun to farm again, but I got to it. First, starting with me stealing more cementing paste and other resources from beaver dams at the hidden lake. So I now have all the polymer I need, and I also have all the oil I need, but I still need more cementing paste to actually craft it. However, while I had some polymer crafting in the morning of day 78, I decided to take some initiative in transporting my Rexes. So I grabbed some stone ceilings from my structure box and then placed them, expanding the platform on the back of my Quetzal. And I managed to get 2 Rexes on it before getting distracted with a minigun turret I had actually gotten from a drop. I've never actually used one of these before, so I placed it down on my roof as you do and loaded it with all the advanced rice bullets I had. And then I started to try and shoot a PT out of the sky. Yeah, I somehow managed not to hit a single shot on the bird. Anyway, back to doing stuff. I got back on my RG and swooped the metal muncher to farm some metal and obsidian because cookers are really expensive. And after that, I returned to my base and got the metal smelting in my industrial forge, and I decided to check out the snow for penguins again. But once again, I didn't see a single one. Do these dudes even exist anymore? It seems like they were thrown out of existence, which really sucks for me because that means I have to spend my resources crafting more hard polymer. Anyway, I returned to my base at the end of the day and crafted the hard polymer I still needed, and began crafting cementing paste in my mortar and pestles to make the cementing paste I actually need for the cooker. I started day 79 by farming stone with my RG and Dodic. I did this because I need more stone in my mortar and pestles to keep crafting cementing paste. Really wishing I had a chemistry bench right now. Anyway, eventually I had my industrial cooker, and I first tried placing the cooker inside my base, but I discovered that irrigation has changed in ASA. Pipes are no longer in the game. I know there was some way to give your base direct access to water, but I decided to place my cooker down on the beach right below so I don't have to worry about piping it to it. So I now have the machinery required to make medical brews, but I need narcotics and tinto berries to actually do so. The tinto berries are really easy to get, but I don't want to craft hundreds of narcotics and mortar and pestles, so it's about time I get myself a chemistry bench. And once again, I need more cementing paste and polymer. So I actually spent most of the day flying around the map looking for more beaver dams to loot, but I only found one in about 30 minutes of searching. So it looks like I have to go back to crafting the rest of the cementing paste that I actually need. So once again, I farmed a bunch more stone with my RG and Dodic and crafted what paste I could, but I was now out of chitin. So I grabbed my Thyla and swam back over to the Carnivore Island because I would be killing spiders in this cave to get more chitin. I made my way into the cave on day 80, but there was nothing inside because I had done a dino wipe recently. So I waited around for a little bit in hopes that something would spawn in it, but nothing did. So I ended up just leaving the island after looting a pretty crappy yellow drop. But in the meantime, I decided to farm some obsidian on one of the metal mountains because I needed to continue crafting polymer. And I just gotten over 400 obsidian crafting into polymer back in my base before hopping back on my Thyla and swimming back over to the Carno Island. And to my delight, there was a ton of creatures now in the cave, and I killed pretty much all of them, including the bats, just because I hate them. And I did get mega rabies a few times, however, so I had to place down a sleeping bag and respawn to get back to full health. But I did get a ton of chitin, so it was definitely definitely a worthy trip. Anyway, I swam back across the sea to my base and spent the rest of the day crafting cementing paste. More stone farming in the morning of day 81, even before the sun came up. And I then had to craft even more cementing paste, but after that, I finally had my chemistry bench. And I placed it in the back right corner of the workshop, but I now have to do some quick farming to get the narcotics I need for the medical brews. And that started with me splitting meat in my thigh from killing the cave dinos to get some spoiled meat. And I then had to farm a buttload of narco berries with my Bronto. And once all the meat had spoiled, I crafted over 600 narcotics, just like that. I really missed having one of these things. Anyway, I also farmed a bunch of tinto berries while I was farming the narco berries, so I started making a ton of medical brews. And I did accidentally craft a bunch of different red dyes because I had autocraft enabled, but it wasn't that bad. Anyway, I just got under 100 med brews, but I also cooked myself up some cooked meat because it's time to start transporting these Rexes to the blue obelisk. And I managed to fit 4 Rexes on the platform at first, but it was not a fun flight. The Rexes weighed down the Quetzal a lot, making it fly super slow. And the trip probably took about 10 minutes from my base to the obelisk, which was insanely tedious, but there's no way I'm going to be walking my Rexes across the map, so this will have to do. Day 82, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but I spent the whole day on one trip from my base to the blue obelisk. This time I loaded up about 5 Rexes onto the Quetzal, making it move even slower. But what really ate up the time was when I landed. When the Quetzal landed, it does this weird swoop animation where if you're not careful, it'll knock all the Rexes off the back of the platform, and it takes forever to get them back on, especially on a mountain with super uneven terrain. I think I even died a few times because how I fell off the Quetzal. Honestly, it was just terrible, and I don't want to keep talking about it, but I still have to do 2 more trips to deliver my Rex army up to the blue obelisk. But day 83 somehow went worse. I first started with a meat run to keep my Rexes fed, and I then loaded up another 5 Rexes on my Quetzal, but I suffered from the same issue as last time. I had to land on one of the snow mountains, which knocked some of the Rexes off, and it was so annoying to get them back on. And I kept falling off cliffs too, which was super annoying, making me want to punch my monitor. And I even managed to actually die somehow, so I had to fly back on my PT and leave it there while I continued transporting Rexes. But yeah, I eventually did get the Rexes to the obelisk, but that was another whole day wasted. But I did set up a trough at the obelisk to keep my dinos fed. I don't know why I told you that, it's not that important. Day 84, I decided to hatch some Rexes to kill with my Quetzal. I was really hoping I could pump enough stamina into it where I didn't have to land at all on my flight out to the blue obelisk, because I'm pretty sure if my Rexes fell off the platform one more time, I probably would have killed somebody. Anyway, the baby Rexes hatched and put them down with my Quetzal, which honestly took a little while. The Quetzal does so little damage, but I got over 3k stamina into it, which I'm really hoping is enough to make it out there in one trip. Anyway, I loaded the last 3 Rexes onto the platform and set off, and to my surprise, it was actually able to make it in one trip. Anyway, I dropped off the Rexes and flew back, collecting my PT and a red drop in the progress. And I did get a fabricated sniper rifle, but I'm not sure I'm actually going to use it. I still really want a pump shotgun to output damage, but getting the fabricated rifle was enough to get me into the mood for farming some gunpowder. I had a ton of charcoal from smelting metal in my stone forges, so all I had to do was farm some spark powder. So I spent the rest of the day farming stone and flint and then turning it into spark powder in my new chemistry bench. But what is all this gunpowder for, you may be asking? Well, now that I'm pretty much ready to fight the boss, I'm actually missing one thing: a UD to courage war my dinos to make them even stronger. So I started off day 85 by actually crafting a bunch of trank darts. I had just over 100 darts to tame a fluffy chicken, and I also picked up the trap right outside my base to tame it. If you're wondering where that theory was I put in the trap like 20 days ago or something, it was deleted in a dino wipe. But I'm not mad about losing it because I was actually never gonna tame it in the first place. But anyway, I set out on my RG into the snow to find me a UD to tame, and it didn't actually take me long to find a level 115 that would be perfect. It wasn't an amazing level obviously, but it didn't need to be. It just needs to have a little bit of stamina to roar and run, and have a little bit of health to tank some damage. But it was in a very dangerous area, and it was fighting a lot of stuff. So I first tried placing a trap right next to it, but it literally ran right past it to fight something I couldn't see. But luckily, I could pick up structures in Ark Survival Ascended. So I moved the trap down towards the river that was nearby and placed it on some ice. The UD was avoiding the trap like it was instant death or something. I can't tell if its AI was too smart or too stupid to go into the trap. But while the UD was running around like a chicken with its head cut off, it actually got it stuck in some pieces of ice. So I'm gonna assume its AI was too stupid to go into the trap. Anyway, the UD wasn't moving, so I started pumping it full of trank darts. I seriously put almost 100 trank darts into it before it fell unconscious. And even though it fell asleep under the ice and underwater, it was somehow not drowning. So I took it as my cue to place some spike walls around it and protect it while I fly back to my base to get a saddle for it. Day 86, I arrived at my base and grabbed the Journeyman UD saddle I'd gotten from looting the drop. And on the flight back out to taming the UD, I managed to snag some raw prime meat from a dead Carno that was recently killed by a mammoth that had made the mistake of attacking. And once I made it to my fluffy chicken, it tamed pretty fast with the meat I stole. And I did have to run it back to my base with my PT following me through one of the most dangerous parts of the map, but it honestly wasn't that bad. And I decided to take it back to my base instead of walking it directly up to the blue obelisk so I could power live it by killing some Rexes. And that's exactly what I did when I got it back to my base. And I also named the UD Roid Rage for some reason. I don't really know why, I just thought the name fits. Anyway, after that, I grabbed 3 more artifacts and all the tributes I needed to start the boss. And I then set off on my Quetzal with my Yudi on the back of the platform towards the blue obelisk so I can actually do the boss this time. And I made it to the obelisk in about 8 minutes later, and I filled the troughs for my Rexes to get one last meal before we go in a fight that could kill us all. But I'm confident I'm gonna win this.
Alright, well, I should be able to dog on this boss.
Well, I didn't sound too confident in that clip, but I'm pretty sure there's only one way to test my theory, and that is to fight the boss. So I did one last sweep of my Rexes, making sure none of them had any extra levels I could put in the melee before the fight. And once they were all good, I summoned the Alpha Megapithecus. So yeah, I beat the Alpha Monkey. It took way longer than I thought it would, but that's alright. Anyway, I looted the supply crate that bosses now drop to get their flag, trophy, and the element.
We beat it. It honestly put out way more damage than I thought it would, though.
Yeah, and as I said there, the boss was actually way tougher than I thought it'd be. But I think having permanent saddles on my Rexes was probably the hindering factor. Anyway, once I was teleported back outside the arena, I began immediately loading on my Rexes on my Quetzal to fly back home and start producing more Rex eggs. Day 87 started with me flying my 5 Rexes back to base. And I made the mistake of putting all the females on the platform, so I'm gonna have to come back and snag a male later on so that they could breed. Anyway, the flight home took forever, but I eventually made it. But I didn't stay for too long because I had things to do. I first swam out to the sea between my base and Carno Island to get a raft that I had left there when I was killing the Megalodons with my Thylo. And I sailed it back to shore and took one of my Rexes on and over back to Carno Island to do a meat run. Gotta keep my dinos fed at my base, especially since some of them took a lot of damage in a boss fight recently. Oh, and also I looted a purple drop when I was on Carno Island, and I got a really good Mastercraft Megatherium saddle. If only it was a blueprint. My eventual Megatherium army is gonna need to have good saddles when they take on the Alpha Broodmother, but I'll take a nice pre-crafted one when I can get one. Anyway, when I returned to my base, I fed my dinos and reorganized myself as I had a lot of stuff in my inventory. And to end off the day, I placed a flag I'd got from killing the Megapithecus on the front porch of my workshop. Day 88 started with me scouring the swamps. I'm not totally sure what I was looking for, but it was either one or two things. It was either a frog because I'm gonna need one to do the swamp cave, or a Rhinognatha because I need to tame one in this 100 days because I've actually never tamed one before. But I didn't find whatever I was looking for. I seriously don't know what I was looking for. Anyways, I returned back to my base and I decided to fast travel into the easy underwater cave because I hadn't checked on it in a while. And to my shock, I actually saw a blue drop deep in the water, and I managed to swim down there and open it to see an insane fabricated sniper rifle. But I didn't have enough oxygen to make it back to my bed safely, and I died. Oh well, I can just come back and get it. So spawning in back at my base, I decided to do a mind wipe to give my character some more stamina. Since I lost my Ichthy, I still don't have a good water dino to traverse the water, besides my angler, but it's on the other side of the map, and I don't feel like going to get it. So if I have scuba and a bunch of stamina as well as a Foco Chili active, I think I should be able to move through the water pretty efficiently. So after that, I crafted some more gravels in case I need to get away from something faster than I could swim, and I then took off on bones towards the cave. And I made it there before the end of the day, and I immediately dove underwater, eventually making my way through the cave. But once I was there, I couldn't find my body. So I thought maybe a dino ate it, but I couldn't see the item cache on the floor either. It's honestly really annoying because that fabricated rifle would have been insane to have. Anyway, I decided to cut my losses and just fly back home. But at the very end of the day, I accidentally J-whistled. Only PC players probably know this pain, but for those who don't know, J is the button bound to whistle all your dinos to follow you. So they all mess up their lines or however you had them organized. It's honestly just really annoying. Day 89, and I tried to get my dinos in some sort of order. But after that, I decided to go look over to the swamp again, because this time I was knowing I was looking for a Rhinognatha. I know this because when I found a level 20 male, I said this.
Oh, that's perfect. Gotta get the pheromone thing.
So now that I knew where one was, I flew back to my base to grab one of my Erectus I originally tamed to start breeding. I needed it to kill that level 20. And for those who don't know how to tame a Rhino, allow me to educate you. To get yourself your own Sky Giga, it's like taming a Reaper, sort of. You have to get a female Rhino below 10% health and then have it impregnate your dino. But the only way to get it to impregnate your dino is to kill a male. The male will drop a pheromone which you can use on your dino, signaling to the female that it's ready to plant a baby inside of it. I wanted to use a Rex because it's strong. You need to be strong to successfully kill a Rhino and to get one below 10% health. But, this is the most important part. Whatever dino you use to get the Rhino baby, that dino will die, no matter what. So don't use your favorite tame to get yourself a Sky Giga. Anyway, I made my way back to my base and saddled up my new Rex, and I then began the long journey of walking a Rex through the island towards the swamp. And I killed the level 20 Rhino on sight. It didn't stand a chance. And I got the pheromone I needed. But I now need to find a female to tame, a high level preferably. But I kid you not, after only 5 minutes of looking, I spotted this.
Oh, okay. We can't mess this up.
Yeah, I found a level 135 female, but as I said, I can't mess this up. I somehow have to get this Rhino low enough to impregnate my Rex without killing it.
No!
Yeah, turns out I did one bite too many. But don't doubt me yet, my viewers, because I found another female on day 90. This time, it's being a level 130, and I successfully managed to get it to impregnate my Rex.
Oh. Oh, it's pregnated. Yes. Yes.
But now that I got my Rex to have a baby Rhino inside of it, I left something out. You see, getting a level 130 Rhino isn't that easy. Instead of having to kill dinos to level the baby up, the baby will have cravings which you have to feed the Rex to level it up. The problem is these cravings can be outrageous. Like, if you get lucky enough, I'm pretty sure the baby Rhino can crave literal giga eggs. Who just has those to spare? I certainly don't, so I really hope I don't get that one. And I'm too far away from my base to make it back before the baby pops out, so I decided to hunker down in the swamp. But unfortunately, the baby actually craved extraordinary kibble, which I obviously don't have out here in the swamp, so I'm just gonna have to deal with whatever level it pops out as, which is probably gonna be very bad. And I even tried relogging to see if that resets what it wanted, but it didn't.
Oh my god. Level 32.
So yeah, the baby popped out as a level 32, but more importantly, I still have to raise it in the literal swamp, so I need to protect it. And that started with me farming up and placing a bunch of spike walls around it. Also, I named it Bugger, because it's a bug. Anyway, I imprinted the baby twice, and when it was almost full grown, I fast traveled back to my base to make a saddle for it. And I then flew back on my bird, saddled it up, and pulled a 180 to fly back to my base. And once I got back, I thought it was pretty funny that these things can actually pick up whole Rexes.
Oh, what? That's insane. That looks so goofy.
Day 91, and now that I have a flying creature that can pick up dinos the size of Rexes, I think it's a good time as any to tame a Megatherium. It's been 91 days on this arc, and I'm yet to even tame any Megatheriums to start my boss army for fighting the Broodmother. So I spent the early morning making rifle bullets, narcotics, and trank darts for the tame. And I only had to craft 2 more stone foundations for the trap because I had the rest of the structures from looting drops over time. Anyway, I set the trap back up right outside my base because I realized I could just carry the Megatherium back to my base and tame it right there once I find one worthy to tame. But after that, I set off into the snow to begin my search. And not long after, a few things happened. First, I noticed that Rhino's wings are flapping too fast for this game to even process, leading it to have this really buggy look that didn't look good at all.
That still looks bad. Why do the wings look like that? They flap too fast. The game can't even load it.
Anyway, after that, I found a level 110 Megatherium.
You see, it's not terrible, but like I need really good ones for the Alpha Broodmother. Ah! That thing just smacked me for 288 though. Why did I just get mad?
Yeah, so I didn't know this at the time, but Megatheriums automatically aggro to Rhinos when they're close because they're bugs. And of course I gives them the bug buff, making them hit like semi-trucks. But this would lead me to not being able to pick up Megatheriums and carry them long distances since they would shred through my Rhino's health. But I wouldn't fully realize this until later on. So anyways, the rest of the day was spent looking for another high level Megatherium to tame, but to no avail. However, my patience was once again rewarded on day 92 with me actually finding a max level female. And of course, I tried picking it up and bringing it back to my base.
Oh, stop, stop, stop. Why? What is your problem?
So flying it back to my base is obviously not gonna work, so I decided I'll bring the trap to it. And I also looted a red drop on my way back to my base, and I got a decent Basilo saddle. But once I actually did get back to my base, I picked up the trap and pulled a 180 back to my base. Luckily, the Megatherium was in a relatively safe area for being in the snow. So once I got back there, I set up the trap next to a giant rock, and then I spent literally the whole day trying to get the giant sloth into the trap. It was only a few hundred feet from the trap, but it hit so hard and I could only carry it for a few seconds before having to drop it, then go kill something to heal my Rhino up. But after struggling for so long, I decided to go back to my base and grab a few ramps to lead into the trap, which did the trick. Day 93, and I waited for the bug buff to wear off before I started lighting up the Megatherium with trank darts. I didn't know if the bug buff actually affected how much torpor it would take, so I decided not to risk it and just wait a few minutes. And once the Megatherium was asleep, I killed a few dinos like a mammoth and a carno to get enough prime meat to tame it with decent effectiveness. And it had actually lost enough food to instantly tame in the time it took me to get the prime meat. And it tamed out around 6.2k HP and 330 melee, which honestly I don't think is amazing, but I'm pretty sure with some imprint and power leveling I can get those numbers where they need to be. But I still need to tame a good male at some point. But moving on, I carried my giant sloth home back to my base and put the taming gear away. And after that, I decided to experiment a little bit. You see, rhinos are the fastest flyers on the map, but they can also carry a lot of weight too. So I decided to try and do a metal run with my Rhino carrying my Anki instead of using an RG. And I did actually manage to farm a decent amount of metal by the end of the day, but it wasn't as nearly as good as I thought it'd be. Sure, the Rhinos are fast at getting around, but I couldn't get the Anki to auto farm when I had it picked up with the Rhino. And honestly, it was just way clunkier with how big the Rhino actually was. But after depositing the metal into the fort, I flew back out to the blue obelisk at the end of the day. I did this because as I said back on day 87, I forgot to grab a male after I did the boss. And I want to start producing even more Rex eggs because I still need to power level a whole Theory and Megatherium army me when I get them. Anyway, I got the Rex back to my base relatively quickly for simply how fast the Rhino moves. And I then started mass production of fertilized Rex eggs. But now I think it's finally time that I start my Theory boss line. I began breeding my Theories and I had a few eggs stockpiled as well. But that's not before I did a quick bury one with my Bronto to actually feed the babies. And after that I hatched the 4 Theory eggs I had saved up, but none of them had the stats I was looking for, so I killed the babies with my Rhino. And after that I crafted and placed another fridge to store more fertilized Rex eggs. And later on I had to kill one more baby Theory before I finally hatched an egg that had twins and they both had the good stats. But they were both female, so I'll have to do a little bit more breeding to get the guaranteed boss stats once I get a male. But anyways, that led me to spend the rest of the day raising the 2 Theories. But I did farm a little bit of wood and fiber at the very end of the day. I did this because I realized I need veggie cakes for both my Megatheriums and Theories and their respective boss fights. And veggie cakes are pretty expensive to make, requiring sap, a bunch of crops, and a few other things. But I need to start making crop plots to grow my own crops. So after getting the last 2 imprints on the Theories, I began crafting a bunch of crop plots. And I had to do a little bit more farming, but eventually I had 4 crop plots for each crop, except one which had 5. Sometimes math just doesn't math for me. Anyway, the crop plots can also snap to each other now when they're being placed, which is a super awesome feature. But I now need to fertilize these plots so that they can actually grow crops. And I had them placed down by my cooker with a water tap nearby so that they were all irrigated. And I decided to use a toilet that I had from a drop to get the fertilizer I needed.
No, they fixed the poop glitch.
If you don't know what I'm talking about there, back in Ark Survival Evolved, there was a glitch where you can infinitely poop into a toilet, and then you could turn all the poop into fertilizer, so you could fertilize a whole greenhouse in just a few minutes. So wildcard, this is an L change. Anyway, I now had 2 choices. Use up my stamina, poop, and get 1 fertilizer at a time to fill up my crop plots, or use composting bins to slowly get fertilizer over time. But I decided to jump around a lot and poop a bunch to get 1 fertilizer in every crop plot. It was very slow, but it worked. And once I had 1 fertilizer in each crop plot, I did some farming on my Bronto to get all the seeds I needed to grow the 4 different types of crops. And after that, I spent the rest of the day looting beaver dams for more cementing paste. I spent another 15 minutes scouring the island for beaver dams as well on day 96. But I didn't find any more, so I just returned to my compound. But I didn't stay for long because it was time for me to tame a Beezle Buffo. As I said a little bit ago, I need one of these dudes to take on the swamp cave. And they also get a ton of cementing paste when they kill bugs, so it's like doing 2 things for the price of 1. So I grabbed the Mastercraft saddle that I had for a frog, which I got from a drop, and then I set out to the swamp to find me a Kermit. It actually took me a while to find a good one since I had to manually search the swamp on the ground, since you can't see anything from the air. But I eventually left the swamps with a level 145 male in the grips of my Rhino. And once I returned back to my base, I assembled a 1x1 trap and knocked it out. And I actually tamed the thing before the end of the day because it tamed super quick, and obviously I named it Kermit. Day 97 started off with a scare because I thought all my crops had died.
No, what?
But it turns out it was just a visual glitch and they all were in fact still growing. But after that I hatched a bunch of Rexes and killed him with my frog Kermit. And that gave him over 42 levels that'll be really nice to kill some bugs with. And I also decided to cook all the raw meat I had got from killing the Rexes, so I now have a decent supply of cooked prime meat now. I can probably make it my main food source pretty soon. Anyway, after that I got back on my Rhino and picked up Kermit and set out to the swamp cave in the redwoods. And I made sure I had a full set of scuba so that I can survive the poisonous air inside. And once I was actually in the cave, it was going alright killing all the bugs, until multiple spiders came at me. My frog simply wasn't strong enough to take them on. I tried working my way through the cave, but there's simply too many bigger threats and I just wasn't able to deal with on this frog. So I decided to leave the cave, but I had a plan to come back. I wanted to tame another female frog and then breed the 2 for a baby. The 30% damage reduction and output should be enough to make it possible to go through the cave. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I dropped Kermit off back at my base and then turned around and spent the rest of the day searching the swamp for another frog to tame. Day 98, and once again it took me a while to find a frog I was looking for. I even found another high level male that I eventually found a level 135 female.
Yes.
Anyway, the taming process was pretty much identical to the last time. I brought it back to my base and dropped it back into the 1x1 trap, and actually killed more baby Rexes to get the raw prime meat needed to tame the frog this time because it's actually pretty efficient. But once it was mine, I brought both of my frogs down to the empty water pen and I got them breeding since they need to breed underwater for some reason. And while I was waiting for the baby to hatch out of the egg, a yellow drop with a ring came down nearby, and I got an absolutely insane RG saddle from it. I mean, I appreciate the saddle arc, but I'd really like a Theory or a Megatherium saddle way more. The baby tadpole hatched out of his egg in the morning of day 99, and I named it Kermit as I already had a Kermit and it was a female. And I made sure to wait around for it to want an imprint, which I easily got since it's only wanted a Cuddle. And I can't lie, it already had some insane melee without leveling yet. But after that, I did stay in the pen for a while to let Kermit finish fully growing up. But once it was, I saddled her up and got all 3 frogs out of the water pen and back up to my base. Moving on, after that, I power leveled Kermit by killing a bunch more baby Rexes, which gave it some serious health and melee. If I can't roll through the swamp cave with this gal, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But before I went back to the swamp cave, I decided to check out the easy underwater cave for any drops. There wasn't any drops, but there were 2 scorpions waiting for me when I spawned in the second bed inside the cave.
Oh. Dude, they broke the bed.
Yeah, I really hate how they added those dinos in an underwater cave. So after getting kicked out of the water cave by deadly force, I respawned back to my base. And I was about ready to head to the swamp cave when I spotted a red drop coming down on Carno Island. But there was absolutely nothing but trash inside of it. So off to the swamp cave I went. Hopefully I can actually get the artifact, a bunch of cementing paste, and maybe even some more decent loot from cave drops. Day 100. Bye. Just kidding, I'm not ending this 100 days here. I know it's technically an 100-day challenge, but I want to beat the whole map on Alpha in this video. And I don't think any of you guys should be complaining either, since you literally get more video to watch. But I'm going to keep it in the 100 days format, so I'm just going to be going over 100 days. Anyway, I made my way back into the swamp cave, and all the spiders were no longer a threat.
Hey. Okay, let's not send the whole cave on at once. Oh. Yep, there goes the scuba.
But yeah, Arthropleurus was still a threat since they can use their acid spit to break the scuba off my back. Anyway, I managed to take down the horde I was currently fighting by using med brews to stay alive, but I had to leave a cave once again to get some more scuba. And when I returned to my base, I decided I wanted to return to the swamp cave with 3 sets of scuba this time. I had some pieces that were good to go, but I needed to craft and repair a few others. So I began crafting polymer that I needed to repair them with, but I wasn't going to have enough to fully repair all 3 sets. And I think you can tell by the tone of my voice how I was feeling about farming more obsidian.
I'm not trying to farm more obsidian.
Anyway, complaining doesn't do much for me, so I took out my Ankylo to the mountains and farmed a little bit of obsidian to repair the rest of my scuba gear. And soon after that, I had everything I needed, and I set back off to the swamp cave to finally complete it. And once I was inside, I began running through the cave with insane speed and strength, but it was still taking me a while to do, simply because I was being cautious. Well, your boy got the artifact of the immune, a bunch of cementing paste, and a decent fabricated sniper from a cave drop. Day 111, I left the cave pleased with my adventure, and when I returned back to my base, I reorganized myself and deposited all my new goodies. And I then flew back over to the Carno Island to loot a yellow drop, but I'm not sure why I'm even telling you this because there's never anything good in yellow drops. But after that, I did a mass hatching of Theria eggs, and I finally got a perfect male, so I can now get guaranteed boss stat Theries. But I did have to mow quite a few other baby Theries down because they didn't have the stats I was looking for. And while I was raising the Theria, I crafted 2 more fridges and placed them outside my base. I needed them because I had almost filled up the other 2 with fertilized Rex eggs. And I spent pretty much the rest of the day raising that male Theria, making sure it gets both imprints so I can use it for the boss. Day 102, and it's time to start raising my Theria boss army. Theries take significantly longer to raise simply because of the fact that they need 2 imprints to get to 100% instead of just 1 for Rexes. I really hope Megatheriums only take 1 imprint because I might go crazy if they need 2. But this led to the entirety of day 103 also being spent raising the second batch of Theries needed to finish off my army. But now that I've spent 2 whole days doing it, I hope I'll never have to do this again, except when I have to raise a whole Megatherium army. I'm not looking forward to that. Now that I'm done raising Theries, it's time to do some other stuff to progress towards being able to fight the Alpha Dragon. And I decided to do some drop hunting. I was really hoping for saddle blueprints or a good pump shotgun, but sometimes Ark does what it wants. And I even discovered a drop that goes into the ground. That bug really should have stayed back on Ark Survival Evolved.
What? I open this? Probably not. Oh? No.
Gonna hit him with the reload to get some new drops spawning. So yeah, I spent most of the day flying around the northern part of the map looting red, yellow, and purple drops. But as you can probably tell by the tone of my voice, once again, I didn't find anything good. But as I was back around my base, I noticed an Alpha Megalodon was near the surface of the water. And I needed an Alpha Megalodon fin to start the Alpha Overseer Ascension, so I decided to take it out. It took a long time because my Rhino isn't very strong, but I eventually remembered that I had a fabricated rifle and I started lighting it up. And the rest of the day was also spent drop hunting as well. But my luck all changed on day 105 when I opened the red drop on one of the snow mountains.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I didn't even notice it first, dude. Oh my god. I've been searching for what feels like basically this whole 100 days. What is that durability? 263 damage is pretty good. That durability is crazy though. I can't express my happiness right now.
Anyway, with me getting that shotgun, I was content with my drop hunting spree and I can now stop. And once I was back in my base, I was collecting and making more shotgun bullets as I was now locked and loaded. And I also attached a holoscope to my shotgun to make finding my target easier. But I didn't want to just stock up on ammo for fun. I wanted to put it to good use. I wanted to go into the lava cave and retrieve the artifact that was in there. If you can remember from a while ago, I couldn't fit my Thyla into that cave, and my saber definitely won't survive. So I plan to go in on foot, be smart, and blast whatever comes at me. So just like that, I geared up getting ghillie and grapples to make the spelunking adventure easier, and I set out. And I made it to the cave with about 10 minutes before the end of the day. And the trip wasn't that eventful, just a lot of bats and bugs being put down by my shotgun. So yeah, I didn't really have any problem whatsoever getting the artifact. This new shotgun is an absolute beast. Anyway, after that, I began flying back to my base to put my new artifact on display. But I made a pit stop on the edge of the redwoods to place down some tree sap taps I brought from my base. I needed these to start producing me some sap so I can make some more veggie cakes for both the dragon and Megatherium boss fights later on. Anyway, speaking of my theories, when I returned to my base, I decided it's time to start power leveling them all. And that's what I did. I spent the rest of the day killing around 10 baby Rexes per theory to get their levels up. And once they were fully leveled, they were sitting around 20k HP and 700 melee. You don't want to give them more than 21k health because that's when veggie cakes are most effective. Somebody did some math a long time ago and figured this out. Just trust me, okay? The majority of day 107 was also spent killing them baby Rexes for levels, but it'll be worth it when I kill the dragon. Hopefully. I should be able to kill it. Anyways, it was about this time when I witnessed Razkark actually fail the Alpha Dragon live on stream. And his theories were actually better than mine, and they had really good saddles. But it might honestly just be a skill issue, I don't know. But moving on, I got done killing baby Rexes at the end of the day. And I had a ton of spoiled meat from all the prime meat I got from killing the babies. And that led me to craft a bunch of narcotics simply because I had the resources for it. And lastly, to end off the day, I did a pretty thick metal run because your boy needs that shiny silver stuff. I wrapped up the metal run on the morning of day 108 and got into my forge after that. And I then crafted a few grappling hooks and set off on my rhino out towards the snow. I was going to retrieve the artifact of the Skylord, and I needed this artifact to summon the dragon, and it should be relatively easy to get, since it's in a quite small cave and I have a shotgun that puts out big damage. Yeah, honestly, that may have been the easiest cave I've ever done. This shotgun was really the key to success. Anyway, I flew back to my base and displayed my new artifact, and honestly, it kinda looked weird. What? It almost looked 2D, but I don't know, it's weird. Moving back towards getting the stuff I need to summon the boss, I need more dino tribute. Starting with Alabrains, which I spent flying around the northern part of the map, but I only managed to kill one before something got my attention. A Giga, which I need to kill for its heart. If you can remember from all the way back at the beginning of the video, I got my first Giga heart by watching a Giga commit die in the lava in the volcano. So I then flew back to my base to get a trap and a shotgun to put down this Giga. And I may have flown over my base to get a red drop, but it wasn't worth my time. But anyway, the grind for getting shotgun shells started, and I spent the rest of the day farming stone and flint to make spark powder right below my base. The first part of day 109 was pretty much the same as the end of day 108. I spent more time farming spark powder than farming wood to make charcoal, farming more spark powder, and eventually crafting shotgun bullets. And I had just over 300 bullets, which should be enough, but I also decided to grab my Thyla and try to kill the Giga using bleed damage to save some shells. But as I was arriving to the base of the volcano, I decided to check inside the volcano to see if I was maybe able to lead up this Giga inside it and have it burn to death. There's two! There's two! Yeah, so I was under the impression that you can only have one Giga on the map at a time, but I guess not because clearly there are two Gigas right here pretty close to each other. So anyway, this Giga was really low since I kept walking into lava, so I put it down with only a few shots and claimed my prize. Yeah, I got a Giga heart way faster than I was expected to, so that's always nice. Back to tribute grinding on day 110. This time I need Yudi lungs, and I need a lot of them, because I somehow haven't killed many Udis in 110 days of playing. And I also did farm a few Alabrains, but I already got near the amount I needed, so I didn't spend too long doing that. But I did have 10 Yudi lungs by the end of the day, and that's all I needed. Now, day 111, I have to move underwater. You see, I need 10 Tuso tentacles and 10 Basilo blubber for the boss as well. But for some reason, the Rhino can actually swim underwater, so honestly, this won't be too bad. But my original plan was just to use the Rhino to tame a Basilo, but that's when I found that level 15 Tuso.
I hope it can't. I'm a flyer. Surely it can't grab me.
So yeah, I actually plan on attacking this Tuso because it was only a level 15, and it should give me 8 of the 10 tentacles I need. But if it can grab my Rhino, it's as good as dead. But luckily, it actually couldn't grab my Rhino, and I put it down with ease. But it then took me like 10 minutes to find the item cache with the loot inside, but don't worry, I got it. And after that, I kept swimming around the map looking for a good Basilo to tame. I wasn't finding any good ones, but I was finding a lot of bad ones. And for some reason, I didn't start killing them for their blubber just yet, even though I just dogged on a Tuso. Anyway, I eventually made my way to the easy underwater cave because I wanted to see if I could bring my Rhino into it, and to my surprise, I actually could. And I could actually fly in the first half of the air pocket, but the cave did eventually knock me off. But the problem was I couldn't get back on it. Even where I was allowed to fly earlier, I could not mount the thing. And after so long of trying, I eventually just decided to allow cave flyers on my world to get my Rhino out of the cave. I don't really care what you say, I'm not losing my Rhino just like that. But don't worry, I won't be cheating future caves, I'll do them normally. And I think if you guys were in the same situation as me, you do the exact same. Anyway, after that, I left the cave and I finally killed a Basilo and realized how easy it was. So I decided just to farm the rest of the tributes like this. But that's when I came across a low level Alpha Tuso. Now my Rhino didn't put out insane damage, but I'm pretty sure I can kill this Alpha if I have enough time. So I spent the rest of the day attacking it, slowly chipping down his health. Day 112 and me and the Alpha Tuso were still going at it, and it was taking a while, but I then spotted a nearby Pearl Cave. And with some amazing maneuvering, I managed to get inside the Pearl Cave, and the Tuso actually tried to attack me through the walls. But it couldn't hit me, but I could shoot its tentacles with my shotgun and do some crazy damage to it.
Don't judge me. you would do the same.
But after so long, the Tuso literally just left, and I couldn't find it. The dude literally despawned into thin air.
That's been so long trying to kill that thing.
And I was super disappointed I wasn't able to kill it. I would have gotten all the Tuso tentacles I needed and more, as well as a bunch of black pearls. And not to mention the Alpha Tuso Eye I need for the Alpha Ascension. Anyway, after that disappointment, I decided to push through and keep grinding for the tributes I needed. I kept swimming around the ocean, killing Basilos, and I even found a red underwater crate, but it was absolutely butt. But yeah, at the end of the day, I had all the Basilo blubber I needed, but I still need to find and kill one more Tuso. But I didn't have to wait long, because I found a level 10 in the early morning of day 113, and it was the perfect level and it was super easy to kill. And I now had all that I needed from the ocean to start the boss, except the artifact of the cunning. That's in the hard underwater cave, and I'm not looking forward to retrieving it. Anyway, I flew back to my base and took inventory of the tributes.
Dude, I got everything I need except the 2 artifacts.
So I need the artifact of the strong in the ice cave and the artifact of the cunning, which I talked about just a few seconds ago. And as I said, I'm not looking forward to getting it, so I decided to do the ice cave. Now, I used to run the ice cave with a Rex and a cryopod, but obviously I can't do that now. So my plan is to grapple through the cave and use my shotgun when I have to. I pretty much just want to avoid the creatures in there rather than fight them. So I spent some time crafting up over 40 grapples and then some medical brews. But I had some really good fur now from looting drops, so I shouldn't need these, but I'm just taking them just in case. But after that, I was off to the ice cave. But I didn't make it far into the cave before seeing the sheer amount of dinos in there and coming to the realization.
You know, I kind of want more grapples.
So I left the same way I came in and flew back to my base before starting to farm for some more grapples. Day 114, I left the base with just under 80 grapples. If this isn't enough, I don't know how many is. But this may have been overkill because I got in and out of the cave in no time, and I had a ton of grapples left over too. Anyway, I returned home and then displayed the artifact of the strong. Now it's just onto the artifact of the cunning. I've decided I'm gonna try and swim through the cave using a combination of grapples, scuba, and a focal chili to make me movement faster. But I barely even made it into the cave before being chased out by eels, so obviously that's not gonna work. So I'm gonna have to rethink my plan. Well, not as much rethink because I already know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tame a Basilo as I have a decent saddle from a drop, and I'm gonna make my way through the cave using brute force. And I legit found a level 135 straight under the water right under my base, so this has to be a sign.
Oh, hey there. Alright, well that was easy.
But I legit had just done a dino wipe, so it took me forever to find a dino to kill for Prime Meat to start passive taming it. But I did feed it before the end of the day before flying to the other side of the snow to loot a red drop. I made it to the drop in the morning of day 115.
Bro, that is a horrible shotgun, but I'm gonna take it.
So anyway, I began flying back over to the Basilo to continue feeding it. But it was dead when I got back.
What? What killed it?
I don't know how it died because I don't think anything naturally attacks Basilos in the ocean, but I guess I have to find a new one to tame. But it actually didn't take me too long to find a level 140, which I would manage to successfully tame this time. But during the tame, I spotted another red drop coming down, and it actually had a Journeyman Rex saddle in it.
Oh. Can I just get a blueprint though, man?
So anyways, after I finished finally taming the Basilo, I led it back to my base on my Rhino while skimming across the water. And since I'm gonna use this Basilo to fight my way through the hard underwater cave, I need to power level it. So I actually picked up some of my air conditioners under my hatching platform and moved them down underwater so my Basilo could easily kill the babies. And I actually spent a long time doing that, and my Basilo got a ton of levels out of it. But after that, I force fed my Basilo to heal it up, and I then set out for the hard underwater cave. But honestly, there wasn't that much to say about it. My Basilo was now super strong and had a good saddle, so I absolutely swept through the cave, and I then got the artifact and dipped. I should have just done that the first time. Anyway, I returned to my base, and I now have everything I need to start the Alpha Dragon boss. But I'm not completely ready yet. And that started with me making more stimulants for veggie cakes on day 117. And I then flew out to the Redwoods to check on my tree sap taps that I placed a few days ago. And I looted a drop on the way out there, and it actually had even more sap, so it seems the game was contributing to my cause. Anyway, the tree sap taps were full, and I also stole some honey from beehives before returning to my home before the end of the day. Now, day 118, and I still really want to get there as Xeno Saddle Blueprint. And after watching a video, I knew I could get them from the ice cave. But the video also said I could get a good Rex Saddle Blueprint from the swamp cave. And I just so happened to know about a little glitch where you loot a drop in the cave, save the game, then relog, and the drop will be in the same exact spot with new loot. So basically, I'm gonna abuse that glitch until I get a blueprint I like. And that led me to craft 2 gas masks and fly out Carmeda to the swamp cave. But before I could actually even make it to the drop, I was going to abuse both of my gas masks were broken by arthropillars. I really hate these things. So I had to return to my base, repair my armor, and this time I made 4 gas masks. And I returned to the swamp cave and spent the rest of the day getting some free loot.
These saddles are crazy. Oh, new shoddy, who this? Rex BP. Back.
Okay, so this Rex saddle blueprint isn't amazing, but I did the Alpha Overseer with primitive saddles back on Ark Survival Evolved, so this should be fine. Anyway, I left the cave, but I forgot to mention that my Rhino actually died while I was farming drops. It died to like a level 10 Rex or something like that, but I was super mad because I thought I left it on neutral, but I guess not. Anyway, I made it out of the cave and used my implant to respawn back in my base, and I then used my RT to fly back to get my stuff. But when I got back, Cremata and my dead body were both under the map. Cremata was easy to get out using ghost mode, but I had some trouble getting my body. It took almost 10 minutes for me to actually find my body under the map, and I was actually not having the best day IRL, so if I was about to lose all my good stuff I just gotten, I probably would have rage quit for a few weeks, and you would not be seeing this video right now. Anyway, I made my way back home on day 120, but I didn't stay for long because after dropping a bunch of stuff I got from the swamp cave, I took off for the ice cave where I could get Theory saddles. But the same glitch sadly didn't work in there, so I couldn't get infinite drops to get a Theory saddle very easily. And to top it all off, my amazing PT Bones died while I was inside the cave, so I now didn't have a flyer to get back home, and I didn't have any good flyers in general, so I had to respawn back in my base and fly one of my mid PTs out to the snow to retrieve my stuff before the end of the day. So day 121 started with me raising and then power leveling my new PT, and I had green wings which actually looked pretty cool, so I named it Green Wings. Listen, I'm never gonna get good at naming stuff, okay? Anyways, the majority of the day was spent farming metal. I was pretty much out of metal now, and I'm gonna need a lot to craft Theory saddles. I still wasn't actually able to find the blueprint, so I'm gonna have to use some primitive ones. I don't like it, but I really don't have a choice. I'm already 21 days over the original 100 days I was supposed to play, so I can't really waste any more time. Anyway, after the metal run, I returned home and got the metal into the forge, before sailing a Rex out to Locarno Island before the end of the day to farm hide for the saddles. I finished farming hide about a quarter of the way through day 122, and I then began crafting a bunch of primitive saddles as well as putting them on my Theories. And I had originally started loading them onto the back of my Quetzal, but realizing that I'd have to do 2 trips across the map and back to transport my whole army, I got an idea. Structure limits were recently increased on rafts, so after crafting a bunch of thatch structures, I was able to make a giant platform on my raft that will definitely be able to take my whole army to the Red Obelisk in one trip, and I then began loading up my Theories on it before the end of the day. I finished up loading my army in the morning of day 123, but not my whole army because I left my UD at the Blue Obelisk after I did the Megapithecus fight, so I had to fly out on Green Wings after that to retrieve it. But Green Wings didn't actually survive the journey home because he decided to land on the ground and get eaten by wolves instead of following me. But when I made it back to my base, something wasn't right.
What? No. Where's he going?
I managed to catch the Theory, however, I still don't know why the Theory was floating upwards. That's probably one of the weirdest Ark glitches I've ever seen. Anyway, after that, I put the UD on the raft and then made a few veggie cakes I could. With me losing my Rhino, it would take way too long to get the rest of the bee honey required to make more cakes. So I'm really hoping my Theories will be able to pull through on their own. But I'm now pretty much ready to fight the Alpha Dragon. As ready as I can be, at least without spending another 10 days preparing. So at the very end of the day, I set sail for the Red Obelisk. I made it to the Red Obelisk about 30 minutes into day 124. Sailing on a raft takes a while. Anyway, I wasted no time and got my army to the center of the obelisk platform. And it might seem like I'm rushing, and that's because I am. I really don't want this video to be too much longer than it already is, so I have to kill this boss and keep rolling. So let's do this.
Wait, no. No, 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 no. I thought it was safe.
So yeah, I failed the fight. I nearly did kill the dragon on foot with my shotgun, but I guess it just wasn't meant to be. I know I set out to beat all 3 alpha bosses and beat the alpha overseer in this video, but you don't always get what you want. But maybe if this video gets enough support, I'll do a revenge tour and redo the island and actually complete it this time. But until then, comment down below and let me know if you actually want that.